Greetings, everyone.
Charles Wayland, played by Lance Henriksen, brings a research team to the
weather
Antarctic
outside
to
is
investigate a mysterious pyramid
frightful.
in the ice. But when they get there, they discover a melted
Monster
hole,
Party.
deep one that leads
Monster Party!
to a pyramid, which the predators keep
it's cold and chilly. Oh, man.
Someone get me a shawl. Ooh. I need an
Charles
ugly sweater.
Wayland, played by Lance Henriksen. Charles Wayland,
Wow.
I love
played
those
Lance
ugly sweaters,
Henriksen,
though.
brings
I
a
do
research
too.
team to the
There's-
Antarctic
I've seen some
to
very
investigate
clever
a
ones,
mysterious
too.
pyramid
Maybe I
in
got
the
to
ice.
take the plunge sometime.
But when they
and
get
one
there,
of
they
those.
discover
And
a
speaking
deep
of,
melted hole
sweaters,
that leads to the pyramid,
are you,
which
sir?
is the
Nice.
which is
am
where the
Matt
predators
Weinhold.
keep the
I am
aliens that they
Shawn
want
Sheridan.
to fight.
I'm Larry Strode.
Which is where the predators
I'm
keep the
James
aliens
Gonis.
that they
And
which is-
for this episode,
which is where the
this
predators
is
keep the
kind of a
aliens that they want to
companion
fight.
piece to an episode
Humans
that we
accidentally
did
release
during
the
the
aliens,
summer.
and they're
Yeah.
caught in between
Yeah.
aliens
That
and
episode
predators.
was called the Monster Party Summer
Charles Wayland,
Slay-CATIon.
played by Lance Henriksen,
This
brings a
episode
research team to
is
the
called
Antarctic to investigate
Monster
a mysterious
Party's
pyramid
Winter
in the ice.
Slay-CATIon.
But when they get there,
The Monster
they
Party!
discover a
Slay!
deep melted hole that
Slay!
leads to a
Yes,
pyramid.
slay as in sleigh ride, as in
But
Santa.
when they
Ah,
get there, they
That's
discover
clever.
Isn't that
melted
clever,
hole
Sean?
that leads to
Oh,
the
Genius.
pyramid,
Winter
really-
which is where the
Slay-CATIon.
predators
It
keep
really
the
works
aliens that
for
they
audio.
want to fight.
It really
Genius.
does.
Humans accidentally release
And this
the
is like
aliens,
winter
and they're
themed
caught
or
in between
winter
aliens and
movies that are
predators.
horror based, but like can be viewed during
Charles
winter.
Wayland,
cold
played by Lance
weather,
Henriksen,
Yeah.
brings a
Not
Not
research
necessarily
team to
Christmas
the
or holiday.
Antarctic
It can
to
be, but it's like
investigate a mysterious
anything that's
pyramid
like
in
right
the
for the
ice.
season of
But
chilly,
when they get there, they
frosty,
discover
racing
a deep melted
horror.
hole
So
that
it's like
leads
you're
to
doubling
the
up
pyramid,
on the shivers.
which is where
It's
the
scary,
predators
but it's
keep the
also
aliens that they
physically
want to fight.
cold.
And what would make you feel
Humans
comfortable is if you
accidentally
had a nice
release the
big
aliens,
bowl of
and
warm
they're caught
soup
in between
as you're
aliens
listening
and
to
predators.
this episode or you're watching these things, you know.
Well,
Hot
you know,
chocolate.
Larry.
Okay.
Speaking of a hot bowl of soup and hot chocolate, we have the hot bowl of soup and hot chocolate of guests. We really
Oh.
do.
in a human incarnation.
Yes, he is. Joining us for the snow globe of terror is a return guest and longtime friend and supporter of our show.
Yes.
When we met him, he was the executive editor of the much-loved magazine Famous Monsters of Filmland
Oh, yeah.
Famous
and-
monsters.
and the creator of the popular blog It Came From. We all love that.
Of course.
We do.
Yes. Since then, he's gone on to become the incredible filmmaker who brought us the epic long-form horror film documentaries In Search of Darkness and In Search of Darkness 2.
Oh.
Awesome.
And, you know,
Wonderful.
he's got some other things coming down the pike that I'm sure he'll tell us all about later. But right now, let's please welcome the man, the myth, the monster kid, David Weiner.
David Weiner. Ho, 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 ho. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me
Oh.
back, gents.
So
Winter
happy to
Slay-CATIon.
hear you, to see you with the Zoom, to bask in your warmth because it is chilly.
These are
Right.
just your description of today's episode is really sort of takes me back to my youth. When
Really?
I grew up in Westchester County, New York, arguably upstate New York,
Okay.
where in the wintertime it gets very cold and lots of snow. And I have very, very fond memories. I grew up in a house right across from the woods and a golf course. So
Nice.
on a
Oh.
snow day, I was the happiest of happy campers.
Yeah.
And my sister and I would go sledding and we'd romp around in the woods and hopefully not be, captured by a beast or something like that.
Right.
Your,
But my
your
point of my
description,
tale-
your description does sound like a horror movie. House across from the woods.
We have happy memories of that whole neighborhood. But primarily after all the events, my mom would put me in my winter boots by making sure my feet were in baggies from the grocery store
Yeah.
to keep my socks dry.
Right.
I would come home to a warm, hot cup of Swiss Miss cocoa,
Oh.
and it's happy memories. That's my rosebud memory of my life.
Oh,
Marshmallows?
that's wonderful.
You have marshmallows?
Absolutely,
There
big
you
and
go.
small.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Hey, Sean, you grew up on the East Coast too.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I mean, same thing. It would snow like crazy, and it was super cool. But yeah, we'd go out and make our forts, play Monster outside, and I mean, yeah, it was always. I mean, the seasons were very extreme. So I remember winters very well growing up.
And snow days, which my son laments that there's no such
Absolutely.
thing out here in Los
No.
Angeles.
I know.
I grew up in San Francisco, so it never really got cold enough to snow. Once it did. There was one time where it snowed and we ran out and played with it before. Like it's rapidly melting as we're playing with it. Like,
Right.
no, please, no. But most Christmases we had to go out and play with the fog. Like that was
Right.
It's so hard to pack a fog ball.
a fog
Yeah,
man.
it really is.
A fog man is really terrifying, as we know.
James, you were in New York. Were you kind of more urban place where they didn't have snow or something? Or
No, we got snow. We got our share of blizzards. I never usually woke up that early or listened to the radio that much when I was a kid, except
You just
when we
never
had a
ventured outside, James, basically, right?
Well, I still don't for that matter. But back then, man, I was up at like 6:30 with the radio on, waiting for the news reports. Was it a snow day or not?
Yeah, no, because
Sure.
a snow day meant you could stay at home, play with your toys, and watch monster movies. you
And
know?
no internet, so you had to sit and let them list every single school in your
That's
district
right.
that was
Yeah,
closed.
That's
and
right.
they'd usually go alphabetically, and you're just like, please,
Yeah.
please call our
Right.
name.
The closest thing we had to that when I was going to school is when it would rain. And then everybody was called in from the yard in elementary school and brought into the cafeteria. And the cafeteria, they set up a screen and we'd watch A Man Called Flintstone.
Yeah.
Oh,
Fun.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I think that was the only film they had because we saw it again and again.
That's hilarious.
we watched Davy and Goliath. It was
Okay.
Okay.
private school,
It's
so
like
we
a
always had to-
Catholic thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, Davey. Is it a school day? It's a snow day.
Oh,
That's cool.
man. But there's a
All
lot
right.
of really cool. There's a lot of cool snow and wintry horror stuff.
Yeah, I mean, horror lends itself
Yeah.
very well to like
Yes, it
the
does. Oh, yeah.
cold, unflinching weather. I mean, it works well.
Right.
Hey, David, do you have one you'd like to start us off with? I'm gonna guess.
Many.
I'm going to guess which one you start with, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, wait, please guess because I'd like to see if you're even in the neighborhood.
Were you going to start us off with, of course, the classic winter cold movie, John Carpenter's The Thing?
I didn't even put that on my list because
Yeah, you did.
hang on,
Yeah.
hang
You
on, hang on,
kidding
hold
me?
on, hang on,
Are you full
everybody.
of crap?
Well, please, let me explain. I thought everyone is going to go to, I don't know, maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but I'll just sort of clarify. There's some very obvious ones like The Thing and The Shining.
The Shining,
uh,
right?
and some others that, of course, must be discussed on this podcast. It would be remiss if we did not mention it.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
Sure.
we would.
Because I figured they're pretty obvious go-to. And knowing that you guys are a sophisticated crowd, I went to one, at least the one first out of the gate.
Okay.
The Abominable Snowman from 1957, Hammer
Yep.
Films.
Classic.
The Abominable Snowman of the Himalayas.
Yes, starring Peter Cushing, right?
Yes,
Forrest
and
Tucker.
And
Forrest
Tucker.
yes,
took
and a screenplay by Nigel Neal.
by Nigel Neal. Yes,
And
you
dir-
guys
yeah, and
know
directed by Val
exactly. Of course
Guest.
you knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Creator of the Quatermass series, not the Quartermass, which I always thought it was.
Quatermass.
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 Exactly. I'm quaking in my boots trying to pronounce Quatermass. And, but
yeah, that's a great
Forrest
one.
Tucker, he got lost on his way to F Troop and he found himself in the mountain of the Himalayas. And as I saw this as a kid on a black and white TV, it didn't matter because it's black and white, so I didn't
Right.
miss anything. And it's this ranks as one of those films that's more a happy memory than arguably a recommendation. But it's cool to see Peter Cushing in a Hammer film that's not like a Victorian setting,
Right,
setting
right.
in
Yeah.
the snow. That's super cool. And I like it sort of first out of the gate for my recommendation or discussion film because, frankly, we just don't have enough good Yeti films out there.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
true.
Lately there's been a bunch of animated ones for kids, and I'm acutely aware of that one. But in terms of just like a really cool movie where the Yeti is going to get you or you're going to get the Yeti, but someone's not going to make it at the end of the movie. There really aren't good ones. And I would not necessarily classify this one in that category either.
But I will
I
say,
do enjoy it though. I mean, I think
I like it.
the premise is kind of interesting, okay?
this is a Hammer film from the 50s.
Group of guys are going off into the Himalayas to search for this mysterious Yeti. And guy fires at what he thinks is one and he kills it.
Right.
And
But
you think to yourself, well, that's great. He killed it, but is that the only one?
Right.
And there's this fear that develops and they're kind of attacked, if you
it's
will.
atmospherically shot in black and white.
Yeah.
And what I like about it is that it's the science versus commercialism theme, because Cushing is this botanist who's all about science and really wants to discover this lost race. And he finds out kind of like midway through that Forrest Tucker, he's just a showman. He just wants to capture this thing, put on display in a zoo. And the idea also of like shooting and injuring this one is like, what about if all the relatives and all the other ones come after him? That's creepy. And you do get a sense that these aren't just animals. I mean, these Yetis are smart. They're from an actual fairly sophisticated civilization. Or usually you get that feeling because these aren't just like animals.
Or human-like. Very human-like.
Yes.
That's what I liked about this movie is that it added a level of intelligence to the Yeti legend that I wasn't expecting. Yeah, I think there's some twists and turns that make me enjoy that film. I mean, it's not a thrill ride.
Well, and look, I think I don't want to speak for David, but look, when you watch The Creature from the Black Lagoon, you see the creature all over the place. But for this film, you want to see what does this Yeti look like, and
it's more suggestive. You see a couple creepy, shadowy
close-up shots, but it's not exactly what I want to see full-on Yeti.
Well, that's what you're speaking exactly how I'm thinking. I connected this movie because I saw it as a kid, and I saw like practically every monster movie that came my way on television. As a kid, as we all did. We are the monster kids, and part of when you're really young, it's just like a waiting game.
Yes,
you couldn't fast forward.
Totally.
It might be the only time you ever see it. You may never see it again. So you sat there patiently waiting and waiting for the big monster reveal.
You're like, that's the monster. Oh no, it's just Forrest Tucker.
And I'm also on the heels of Forrest Tucker, arguably, according to his wife, is a monster. No, I just threw that out. But I'm just making that up. Sorry, Forrest Tucker.
Nobody write letters. We all love Forrest Tucker.
It's the holidays and you're lashing out at Forrest Tucker.
I'm sure he was a lovely, lovely man.
Don't get
David started on Larry Storch, though.
Oh my goodness!
Don't get Tracy the gorilla mad at you.
We've had some great party experiences. Like, you can't. It can't be talked about.
But
no, this is when I saw this, I was kind of on the heels of the $6 Million Man and Bionic Bigfoot, and which does not pull punches in terms of screen time and action. When it comes to confronting the cryptid. Really, because if you have to think, this is the era. Lastly, I'll say, because I don't want to spend so much time on this movie, but this is the era where I truly believe that there was a Bigfoot. I truly believe there was a Yeti or Abominable Snowman. I truly believe there was Loch Ness Monster.
Right.
So I could not wait to see this, and I just had to wait patiently for the payoff. And the payoff was not quite what I had hoped for, but I have happy memories of sitting through it, hoping for the best when I watched
But see, this is a movie that I watched when I was young. I felt it was a bit lackluster. I've watched it recently, and now I appreciate the Nigel Neal-ness.
There's much more. It's much more of an intellectual connection if you have half a brain compared to when you're a kid. You're looking for a little more action packed.
Where's a monster? Yeah. Well, now that we're on the subject of Yetis, you were right that there are not a lot of great Yeti movies. There's a couple good Sasquatch movies.
Yeah.
But we need better Yeti movies. The one Yeti that I loved was the Yetis from Doctor Who during the Patrick Troughton period. And
is that what it's called? The Yetis of Doctor Who? Is that what it's called?
it's not. That's not what the episode is called. I think it's called
That's the name of my new book.
No.
It's like the Yetis of Doctor Who.
Well, the Yetis made a couple appearances, and I think for the most part, there's only, I think, just a little handful of footage that's left because, they destroyed a lot of episodes of Doctor Who. Yeah, so there's missing episodes. And yeah. And so what they've done is I have a nice audio book kind of thing where, people would record these episodes off television, just the audio. And then what they would do is they, enhance the audio and make it so, you had some connectors with a narrator. And that's fun. And it puts you there. And what's interesting about these Yetis is that they're actually, it's kind of like Bigfoot in The $6 Million Man. They're robots.
Right.
So, but that's cool. But I would like a real Yeti movie.
Ooh. Yeah.
David is holding up a $6 Million Man book that, what was it?
Novelization.
What was it? The Secret of Bigfoot Pass.
Yeah, just holding up the novelization of the episode.
I think I know what the secret is. Yeah. There's a Bigfoot.
And sorry, not to keep on because I know this is a visual medium, but this is a book I had as a kid.
Greatest Monsters in the World by Daniel Cohen.
I still have that book.
And it's got the real story on the real monsters that exist, and between
you tell what is the real story.
I was
David,
really
you're talking you're talking to this kindred spirit here. I love all the cryptid stuff. I love all that stuff.
Same here, buddy.
Last I'll say before, I think we should probably stop boring people with the Abominable Snowman movie.
No. We're not. I'm waiting for you to finish your point.
Well, I think I've made my point, but I will put a fine point on it at the end in that I think the most exciting kinetic experience I've had with any Abominable Snowman or Yeti movie is really just two rides at Disney, and that's the Matterhorn ride and Expedition Everest in Florida.
That's a great ride.
It's a larger
that's
Yeti.
Like you get to live in the movie that you really want to see one day.
Right.
You get to be not only in the environment, but you get to come face to face with a pretty malevolent looking Yeti.
I have a nice little snow globe that was sold in the gift shop.
That's cool, actually.
Now, before you brush off Yeti, I just want to, because you brought up two big things. If you want to talk about that Yeti at the Matterhorn, remember when the Matterhorn was first built, there was no Yeti in there. There was no Yeti. Yep. And when it was redesigned and they added the Yeti, I could not get enough of that ride. And I would stand in line for another 45 minutes, wasting time. And, I only would go on two rides, it's like Haunted Mansion, back to the Matterhorn. So I could see the Yeti again. But it was so cool. And what they do, I love how when you go through the caves and they actually hear, you hear the roar.
Oh, yeah. So
you see the little beady red eyes and it builds. And so as you get towards the end of the ride, you see more of the Yeti, which is similar to the one in Florida, but it's a bigger payoff.
And quick aside, the Matterhorn at Disney, when it was first built, before there was a Yeti inside that to the cherry on top, they used to have a person climbing the outside as an attraction. Which is kind of cool.
Do you remember at Disneyland for a while they sold these ride cars? They're little toy ride cars, and they'd sell them in several of the gift shops. And so there was the car from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Pirates of the Caribbean. But then there was one for the Matterhorn. And I think it was Mickey. So Mickey's in the car and he's having a good time. And then the Abominable Snowman, the Yeti, is behind him.
Oh, that's cool.
Scared out of his mind.
Oh, that's great. That's cute.
Yeah, it's really cool.
All right, nice.
Apparently, from what I read, just like the opening of King Tut's tomb, 100 and some odd years ago, spurned interest in mummies. And then we had, the Universal Mummy Pictures. In the early 50s, there was a scientist that found footprints of a Yeti and published those pictures. And then so suddenly you have this mini genre of Yeti movies in the 50s.
Right.
And one of them was from Toho, Half Human from 1955.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right.
This was the next kaiju movie that Ishiro Honda made right after Godzilla, like a year later. In black and white, and Akira Takarada's in it. Americanized a little bit later on with John Carradine doing some narration.
Awkwardly added footage.
Always.
Right. Not a nail biter, not a really suspenseful movie either. But and also has a strange history because Toho was apparently somewhat embarrassed by, I guess, the way that natives were depicted in it, and they decided to proactively pull the picture. So it's one of those sort of classic Toho monster movies that's never really been fully given the Blu-ray release and all that.
Right.
There's pretty bad transfers out there that can be found, but you've also got an adult Yeti, and he's got a kid, and then the kid gets, they're trying to capture the kid. So you've got a little bit of sympathy toward this Yeti family too.
I like the monster suits. They look more like apes or Bigfoot than they don't have like white fur. They're more like almost like a Bigfoot type looking thing.
And right. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the shirt that you're wearing, James, right now is an abominable snowman.
That's right.
An abominable snow monster named Bumble.
Right, the Bumble.
That's right.
Yes, we'll get to that.
Okay, for on the topic of that, I'm going to very succinctly mention all the Yeti films that I have on my list.
Go, because I bet there's one that I was thinking of that I bet you have.
Okay.
I did not know I would start an avalanche of Yeti discussions.
But we had, in 1954, we had a movie called The Snow Creature. And this is a pretty basic, very low budget movie where it's like a Yeti is found in the Himalayas or whatever and taken back to society and breaks loose. It's one of those titles that was always in public domain. It's on a million different DVDs.
Right. It's
not very good, but it's directed by W. Lee Wilder, who is Billy Wilder's brother.
Wow.
And also you had and also in 1956 we had a movie called Man Beast, directed by Jerry Warren, who was one of the ultimate schlock directors. But Man Beast is kind of interesting because a woman is looking for her brother who's lost in the Himalayas. She gets a team to go look for him. The guide that is taking them turns out to be the bad guy. He turns out to be half human, half Yeti. And basically he's luring people up there so the Yetis can mate with women and start crossbreeding their race.
Wow.
So pretty unique for a low budget Jerry Warren movie. Then of course you had Snow Devils, the Italian science fiction movie, but also kind of horror by Antonio Margheriti, who did Wild Wild Planet, Planet on the Prowl, War of the Planets, and Snow Devils are basically aliens called Atians who have come to Earth to try to turn the seasons into colder so they can live on our planet. So they're melting they're freezing everything and trying to make it adaptable to their race and thereby killing all the humans. Wow. Then we have the Paul Naschy film, The Werewolf versus the Yeti.
Yeah.
About Paul Naschy. Actually, it's a different kind of origin story for Waldemar Daninsky, his werewolf character, where he goes to the Himalayas to look for the Yeti. Meanwhile, he gets bitten by a couple of female vampires, turns into a werewolf, and then just happens to fight a Yeti who's out there.
Crossing the streams, but I'll buy.
Yes. Then you had 1977's TV movie Snow Beast with Yvette Mimieux, Bo Svensson, and Clint Walker. And it's basically kind of like Jaws set at a ski resort, and it's a Yeti type creature killing everybody, and they don't want to close the resort because there's a big, event going on. And then maybe one of my favorite of all is this crazy Italian film from 1977 called Yeti, Giant of the 20th Century. And it's basically just a dude with a lot of hair and a beard. He's giant, and he gets loose in New York. And it was like an Italian ripoff of King Kong, kind of, where the Yeti, who's much more human looking, falls in love with the girl and has to be caught and all that. So those are my Yeti films.
No hippie.
Very good.
But I can't believe that you did not bring up Terror in the Midnight Sun.
That's also that's also like a Swedish
American.
Also aliens, kind of sci-fi though more, but
but it's an alien Yeti.
Well, it's a beast that is controlled by aliens to kind of walk amongst the huts and start. Yeah, it kind of looks like a Wookiee with giant tusks from the bottom jaw. It's pretty cool looking, actually.
It's really cool, and I remember seeing a picture of it before I'd ever heard of the movie.
Yes, exactly.
In the pictorial history of horror movies.
That's right.
Oh, much like Sasquatch in The $6 Million Man was controlled by aliens.
That's right. But you're right, David, in that all these ones that I mentioned, they're all kind of strange stories where it's just a straightforward, Yeti stalking a bunch of people movie. There's not too many. you
Well,
know?
Now wait a
Not
minute.
that well
There's-
done. Yeah.
I mean, there are some, but
Well,
yeah.
wait a minute. There is an episode of Ultraman where there is a creature called the Woo, and it's
Wow.
WOO. This abominable snowman, really super hairy, of course, with glowing eyes, and he watches over Phantom Mountain, and he also protects this orphan girl. And
Okay.
of course, the villagers are after him, and so it causes a big problem. And then he goes on a rampage. But he's more of a sympathetic kaiju.
Is he actually like a cryptid, or is he like an alien? Is he actually based on Earth?
It's more of it's almost supernatural.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I'm
it's
a
not
big-
an alien.
I'm a big fan of Kiss Meets the Woo of Phantom Mountain. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Oh,
That's a great one.
You should make that happen. They haven't retired completely yet.
I'm going to give Gene a call right now.
Okay. All right.
More recently, I got to throw in Abominable from 2006.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's not bad actually.
That's not
Low
bad.
budget. Yeah, what's most interesting to me is that the protagonist, who's played by Matt McCoy from the Police Academy movies, is a paraplegic. He's in a wheelchair.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's a standard sort of, you've got this mountain village and everybody's terrorized by Yetis. And it's got an interesting cast: Lance Henriksen,
Yeah.
Dee Wallace, Jeffrey Combs in
Yeah.
a small role.
Is that
Yeah.
with Tiffany Shepis also?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I remember because she takes a shower in that movie. So I remember.
Right, the obligatory. and I remember seeing that the score was by Lalo Schifrin, and I'm like, how did they get Lalo Schifrin to do this on a low budget? Well, you know why? The director is Ryan Schifrin.
Uh-huh.
son.
Nice.
So
They
there
have
you go.
called in a favor.
Nice.
Wow.
You
Wow.
think,
Yeah, that one's not bad actually.
I
You're
like
right.
that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that on DVD somewhere.
That's maybe the closest thing to like a straightforward horror,
Yeah.
Yeti movie. I mean, there's horror, like Matt said, there's horror Bigfoot movies, but there's not too many straight
That
out
one, I
horror.
have
Yeti.
to admit,
Right.
has completely escaped me, but it's got an amazing cast and it's got some real street cred. So I'm going to have to
Yeah.
seek it out.
Yeah, it's worth
Yeah.
a watch.
Yeah,
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Totally.
it's worth a Sasquatch.
Oh, now you know what? Now the
Here
holidays
all
have been
week, try the
saved.
veal.
James gives us a pun, Yeti again.
Oh.
Woo!
David, I have a theory as to why there aren't as many Yeti films as there are Bigfoot
Oh,
films.
this I got to
And
hear.
it's no. It's like filmmaking, producing 101. Anytime you're filming in the snow,
Mhm,
it's
mhm.
very, very expensive.
Yeah.
And if you could, it's like, hey, I need to make a monster in the forest film. You go
Yeah.
up to the forest and, hey, put the Bigfoot suit on and run around, whatever. But to do a Yeti in the snow,
Yeah.
it's like now how you have to treat your cast and your crew and
Yeah.
getting them up there. And just there's so much more that has to go into a film that has snow.
I agree
Yeah.
with you, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that is a key reason. But I think the 1957 movie, the Hammer movie I'm talking about, they skirt a lot of that with
It's all studio.
Tibetan monastery or sorry,
Oh, right,
Himalayan
yeah.
monastery.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
the sets,
Lots
yeah.
of interior of caves, and
Yeah,
whenever
right.
they're outside, half the time they're really just walking. They're like peeking. They're looking over like a pinnacle.
Right,
You know,
right.
you don't see many wide shots, and
Yeah,
so
lots of shadows
all you really
and
need
stuff.
is a day of wide shots, and
Yeah.
you're good to go.
But
That's true.
there are some of these like snow scenes and stuff where it's in a studio and they are manufacturing snow, and again it's just a cost to create
Sure.
snow
Sure.
as opposed to if you're doing something that's in a forest or something like that. It's funny with all the Yeti stuff that you guys mentioned. It reminds me there's a sequence that I always loved in Monsters Inc. from 2001. If you guys recall, the monsters, you go through a closet door, you go into a room, you scare a kid, and that's what helps power up the whole monster world.
Right.
Mhm.
And they go through a series of doors, and they actually go through a door. They're thrown into a door of like just all winter. It's all like snow. It's like in the Arctic. And there you have Mike and Sully, and they're freezing, and they encounter the Yeti, who brings them to his cave, and he likes to make snow cones, and he's offering them some. And the voice is John Ratzenberger, who does just a wonderful job in all these wonderful Pixar films. But he goes, here. He holds up these snow cones and they're yellow, and he goes, "It's not what you think. They're lemon." And I just about died.
That's
And
great.
he's
Yeah.
such a bubbly, happy, abominable snow monster. that I really like. But that's the one.
I was very grateful that Spock didn't appear in that cave, just making his cameo.
True.
What was that? Is that's like the one with where he's
2009 Star Trek, where let's jettison Kirk on this random nearby planet. Oh, he just landed on the entire planet next to a cave where Spock happens to be.
Yeah.
No, that's horrible.
That's
that movie still angers me to this day.
I didn't mind that.
It's horrible, horrible.
That was where I okay. Obviously, we're not talking about that, but we can talk about it because there's snow and caves,
there's snow,
and there's a monster that he has to evade. But just to that point, I take all that stuff with a grain of salt. But that was kind of sort of the tipping point for me. That
movie's just a giant.
Unfortunately,
fuck you to everybody who likes Star Trek.
Yeah, that's the problem. There's so many genre big movies like that now that have too many tipping points like that. That like they should screenwriters should know better.
Yeah.
But what was the one? See, I thought you were referencing that Star Trek episode. Maybe you guys can help me. What's the one?
Where they go back in time.
Yeah,
is that
it's like they're in winter.
Yeah, Marion Hartley.
All our yesterdays.
Marion Hartley, yes.
Right.
Yeah, all our yesterdays. Thank you.
And there's a librarian, and so. But if you committed a crime, they send you to a time there's no civilization, and you're in the middle of nowhere, and they throw McCoy and Kirk and
Spock,
right?
and Marion Hartley. But the reason Spock is affected because he's back in the time when Vulcans were much more had feelings and more primitive. So he's now reverting back to that. It's pretty clever, actually.
But I think that's kind of stupid.
He just said
it works for the show, though.
It's stupid that
Hartley.
So every time they go back in time anywhere, all of a sudden Spock reverts to whatever time his planet is.
Listen,
you're missing the point. You're missing the point.
No, you're missing the point.
No.
It's logic. It's logic.
The best point is actually there's a sequence when Marion Hartley, she's wearing this big hooded thing.
Okay, maybe I did miss the point.
And then Spock is staying there, and she removes this and drops this, and there she's wearing this stunning little scantily clad like leather thing. She goes, "Tell me of your world." And you're all, you're right. I got to be in this cave with you. I got to get warm. And then you think the line, how can we stay warm in this cave? Well, it's like, let's get together. She's so beautiful.
But that's why he lost his control of emotions, not because he went back in time to whatever. He just saw Marion Hartley. He's in a cave. He's alone. Who's going to know?
They verbalize that because it's a reversion in time. He's in a more primitive state.
Yeah.
And she feeds him meat,
stupid.
and he goes, I have tasted animal flesh and I liked it, or I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a combination of all these things.
It's totally. It's again another stupid thing from the third season. Every time he goes back in time, he reverts to whatever.
Wait a minute.
Let's ask James because he's seen all the episodes. Let's see what he thinks.
I fully agree with you guys.
All of you.
Well, we're having an argument, James, and where's your suspension of disbelief, Matt? I mean, I totally bought it.
But because you don't have problems with logic.
If you
it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
I bet if you went back in time, all of a sudden you'd start to grow a big brow, and your teeth would get big.
Yeah, that wouldn't happen either, right?
Space 1999, where they all became cavemen.
That's right. Hey, that's right.
Oh well,
so there you go.
Yeah, was that Fred Freiberger again? Or?
Yes, it was Fred Freiberger.
That was that season. Yes, that was
the
Maya season. Maya and
what's the common denominator here?
It was season 1, wasn't it?
I don't.
Fred Freiberger was season 2.
He was season 2, where they changed the music.
But I'm sure Fred was like typing notes to Jerry Anderson, "Caveman, yeah."
The show ruiner.
The monsters aren't goofy enough. Make them more goofy.
And since we're talking about sci-fi and because we're completely off the beaten path now, I want to make sure that we talk about Gun on Ice on Planet
Zero.
Ice Planet Zero.
I want to
say Ice Station Zebra.
Right.
But
that's true.
But the Battlestar Galactica, where they've got
which looks a lot like the mobile
land ram and all that stuff like that, and it's just one of my favorites, just because they had the budget to put it on a snow planet.
Well, yeah. I mean, even though it's sci-fi fantasy, but of course, Planet Hoth.
Of course,
and the Wampa and all that. That's another kind of Yeti. I mean, there's horror and winter elements in that.
Yes,
that's a cool Yeti.
Well, wait a minute, before we, shoot our load here, I just wanted to point out, remember guys, when Empire Strikes Back first came out, we only saw a little bit of that Yeti monster.
Yeah, right.
Special edition added more.
Yeah.
But you knew what it was. There was no doubt that it was like a Yeti style creature.
Yeah,
Right.
of all the tamperings, like that to me was a little less egregious to me because I didn't mind seeing the Wampa a little bit more.
It was cool.
It was kind of scary. I mean, it works fine without it, but that addition.
I'm with you, Sean. I take umbrage with most of the changes, but that one was I think enhanced the experience.
Yes, and before we get letters, yes, Sean's right. It's the Wampa. It's just Yeti-like.
Yeah,
but it's called the
it's not
Wampa.
indigenous to Hoth.
But it's so cool. There's that moment in the new version, in the digitized one, where the Wampa turns and he's got meat in his
he's got some
fangs.
bones there.
And let's face it, that's one of the things. My understanding is they had a real difficult time with that costume and the animatronics of the face when they first did it back in 1979 into 1980. The technology that they actually had a guy in an outfit, and my God, there was an actual blizzard where they were filming it, and the guy could barely walk. And it's like, time is money, guys. And even though it's Empire Strikes Back, big budget thing, it was a struggle. And so we barely got that Wampa in the first one, but thank goodness for them to redo it later on, because I think
and also great. I thought what you might be leading to is they have a whole deleted scene that they shot where the Wampas attack the rebel base.
Yes,
and there's a whole bait and switch that C-3PO does for the stormtroopers while they're trying to escape. That he sort of leads them into the Wampa room where they shut the Wampas in. But they shot pieces of that, and they do exist there. And so
interesting.
They clearly wanted to go Wampa crazy.
Now, the bummer is if you were fortunate enough in 1980 or 1981 to, when Christmas Day, you open your gifts and you got an actual toy Wampa from Kenner. If you look at the face, he's kind of cute because he has like little beady brown eyes and he has like a little triangle mouth. He doesn't look fierce or ferocious. He looks like, oh, hello, let's make some snowballs, But I wish they kind of made one like the digital version.
Well, they have one now. They have one.
They
have
the
12-inch ones are brilliant.
Yes.
And when Disney Plus comes out with the new series next week, Wampas ! Limited series on Disney Plus, we'll be able to explore the whole Wampa history.
Where's
more?
And the Wampas usually the one thing they say, because they have a catchphrase, it's McClunky.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Now for listeners, I mean, Sean was just pulling our leg because for a moment.
No, he wasn't. No, that's actually coming out.
Thank
actually
God
coming out.
You said that.
Larry
I'm so glad
lying to you. That's a real show that's coming out.
I would have gotten sued if Larry didn't come in and say that. I'm so glad. Larry, thank you. Thank you for saving my ass.
The McClunky thing is when they put Star Wars on Disney Plus, we got a moment that we had never seen anywhere before, where when Han shoots Greedo, right before Greedo goes down, he says McClunky, and then he gets shot.
That's right.
Okay. Sean, I know that you're looking forward to the Wampa holiday special that's coming out, right?
Where that would be genius.
Okay.
I wonder if Wampas and Wookiees get along well. I wonder if they are somehow maybe down the line history connected species-wise.
There's a Wampa Wookiee.
What if a Wookiee made a little colony in Hoth years ago? And they made it, and they became. And the Wampas could. How do you know?
How do you know, Larry?
No,
what?
That's
You just can't accept it.
It's like looking at like an owl and a fox or something.
No.
Yes.
Wampas and
both
Wookiees are
entirely
very
hairy.
similar to species to me.
Well, James, what do you think?
Yeah, James.
It's fan historical fiction.
Yeah.
Go back in time. The genealogy of Wookiees.
Yeah. Could be interesting.
Yeah.
I love
It's
it.
called
I love
imagination.
Well, I want to apologize to all who are listening that it is completely my fault that I directed us in a Spock sci-fi cave Star Wars path when we should be talking about horror.
We'll get back into
That's the title. No,
Those are
their
horrific
horror
moments.
Yeah.
And also, the name of the show is Monster Party. So imagine we're at a party, we're having our little cocktails, and you're all, oh, hey, Larry, how about how about this? In the science.
Is that what happens at parties you go to?
Okay, good.
I'm just saying.
Goofy comes in the front door and goes, "Hey, what?"
I have
I'm a bad driver.
Swedish meatball hors d'oeuvres, and I'm going to break them out now.
So if if we are talking about Yetis, and if we could, because you just kind of touch the surface when you mentioned James's shirt, let's talk about the Bumble from the classic 1964 Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Which, as a little kid, when you first see the Bumble, is quite scary.
Yes,
It is scary.
Just like
It
the
is
Winter
scary.
Warlock is scary.
Scared the crap out of me when I was a kid.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
Great design.
I really thought he was going to eat. They were going to have a scene of him tearing apart a reindeer.
And
I
he
wish.
did eat animals too, because you saw the bones in his cave.
Right?
So I mean,
Right.
he did hunt and stalk and eat animals. So
It'd be great
you-
to see just like in the cave, just like the only thing left of Rudolph is just this nose beeping red.
No, that
Bloody
wouldn't be nice. I will say this. I love Bumble so much, and I love that special too. It's so great. He has a great design, and what was it, James? What 96 when they came out with the actual Rudolph toys, and then they came out, and then they Plain Mantis came out with the large size Bumble.
it's on our
Love
mantle
it.
now
Yes.
above our fireplace.
I
Me
mean,
too.
Fantastic.
and they actually came out with two. One was just the regular Abominable Snow Monster, yes, a Bumble, but then they came out with the reformed Bumble, which is the Bumble with a big Christmas tree and all his teeth are gone. And I have that one too.
Nah, I don't want that.
Well, if you think about it, as
Who wants that?
Well, as an adult, we all realize now that when Hermie very quickly removes Bumble's teeth when he's passed out, I expected to see a lot of blood all over the place,
Right, bloody,
and like
bloody
all over
gums.
the snow, bloody gums, like the Bumble would get up, and then Yukon Cornelius would go, "Oh, don't be afraid," and then you would look at him, and he'd have blood all over his mouth, and it's like having your molars removed. It's horrible.
I think it would have been better if Hermie attempts to pull out his teeth, but accidentally gives him a lobotomy. So he's just,
No, that wouldn't be nice. That wouldn't be nice.
you have no Christmas spirit.
Well, how can he put the star on top of the Christmas tree if he's lobotomized?
Since we're on this, the whole Rudolph special, I saw that very young, and I was so impressionable. And I was scared of the Abominable Snowman when they went over the side and the big sort of warding him off because he didn't, he didn't have his bite anymore. I thought they were all dead.
Yeah.
I mean, I fell for every little emotional beat that they set up. I fell for hook, line, and sinker. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so beloved to me to this day.
Yes.
Every time I rewatch it, I'm back to being just a little tot.
It's very dramatic.
All the emotions that I experienced.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's very sincere though, and it's storytelling.
Yes.
It's which you don't get much nowadays.
And in a lot of ways, the way when we're talking about comedic horror, the way to pull that off is to make the horror played straight.
Yes.
And that's what they do with the Bumble. And as you were saying, Sean, the Winter Warlock.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Same setup. Same
Comes
complete
yeah.
setup.
So
But you
this
know what
is
sells the Winter Warlock?
Santa Claus is coming to town.
What sells the Winter Warlock terror are those damn trees.
Yeah.
And the sound that the
He has
trees make,
control
and
of
the
the
way
trees.
the trees grab you.
Yeah.
It's the kinder trauma that I experienced parallel to the trees in The Wizard of Oz, which were
Right.
equally creepy.
Sure.
And so now all trees that grab you, keep me up at night. That's a whole other episode we could talk
I
about.
love scary trees. I really do.
Yeah.
That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite things. Like when they have a blatant face on them, that's fun. But I like them when
It's more when they're not. Yeah.
where it kind of looks like a face.
Right.
You know?
Right. It's gnarled and, it's like Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow, the tree that the Headless Horseman
That's a great
emerges
tree.
from, where he starts chipping away from it and all this blood gushes out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of my favorite moments of that.
Yep. That's
Hey,
cool.
James, what year did Santa Claus is Coming to Town? Is that the following
1970.
70?
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, that was so great. But
Hey,
maybe we should save some of our tree conversation
Let's
for
save it
our,
for
our tree episode.
A tree episode, right?
there's a show that we've been watching, and it's on Netflix, and it's Danish, and it's a show called Elves. Have you heard of this?
No.
No.
It's a limited series, And it's about this family. They go to this remote island to spend Christmas. And they want to go there because there's not that many people on the island. And so they can, sort of bask in nature and be away from, the internet and everything else. So on this island, there's an electrified fence that has this area of the forest cordoned off, and they don't know why. And so cut to the chase, there are elves, these like really vicious tree elves that live. Yeah, they live in the forest. And it's really cool because the elves are done with, it's a mixture of CGI and actual suits and puppets and things like that. And they're really scary. And they almost look like a tree branch is kind of coming to life.
Wow.
And they've got these sharp teeth. And it's not too many episodes. I think it was something like 8, maybe. And they're short. So it's like, 25 minutes. But it builds this story of there's this little girl who they accidentally hit a baby one with their car. And the little girl finds it. And she brings it back to like this kind of dilapidated garage on their property. And she's nursing this thing back to health. And so this little baby elf becomes an ally in what comes. And it's really good. It's really, I'm telling you, the elf stuff is done really well.
Okay.
Check
it out. Check it out.
Check it out.
Well, while we're talking about holiday themed things, which makes complete sense, if I can steal the spotlight again and sort of bring it back to what we're talking about in terms of the topic.
Sure.
I want to make sure that we talk about, I mentioned Swedish meatballs. There's a Finnish film called Rare Exports.
I love that movie.
Which I know that you guys know, but I want to bring it up because it's like the ultimate winter snow Christmas themed horror adventure. Every year I sort of shout from the rooftops on social media that if you haven't experienced Rare Exports, you really need to, because it's such
I agree.
And it also goes in directions you're not expecting, really.
Exactly.
Quite true, Sean. Yes.
But I like it. It's good.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, here's a good psychological horror one that I love that works great for wintertime viewing. This is from 2019. It's called The Lodge.
Oh, right. Yeah.
With Riley, is it Keough?
Keough.
Who is
Riley
the
Keough,
granddaughter of Priscilla Presley and Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
And this movie is fucked up, man. It is really good, though. It is really good. I think it's directed by 2 people, by a guy and a girl. I think they're Austrian. And I think it's shot partly in Canada. But in this movie, there's this father who is deciding to get a divorce from his wife, from Alicia Silverstone. And they have 2 kids, like preteen kids, or just about in the teens. And he's divorcing Alicia Silverstone because he wants to marry Grace, who's played by Riley Keough. So Alicia Silverstone, the wife who's being divorced from, can't handle it, and she kills herself. So you got that baggage. And then Grace, the new woman in this guy's life, is the lone survivor from this like mass suicide cult run by like her father. And it's just this fucked up religious thing. And it's like, and she's getting over that. So she's damaged. And she's like the only survivor from this. So he's going to marry Grace, and he wants Grace to get to know his 2 kids. And the kids, of course, the fact that their mom committed suicide because of this new woman coming into their lives, they don't want anything to do with her. So the dad's like, this is a good opportunity for you guys to bond. Let's all go to this remote cabin in Massachusetts in the middle of winter. Yeah, with nothing else around. And it's lots of friction. It's very awkward. The kids don't want anything to do with her. But it turns out the father has to leave for some business trip. Like he has to go. It's right around the holidays or something. So he has to go. So it's Grace with these 2 kids. And weird shit starts happening. Like Grace may be losing her mind. Maybe some people involved with the cult in the past are coming back. I don't want to say any more than that, but it is very well done. It goes in directions like, wow, I didn't expect that. Very, very good. Very well acted, very creepy. And it's the kind of movie you're like, what the hell is going on? And when you do find out, and then what happens after that, like, oh, okay. It's very good. It's very
bleak.
Very
extremely
bleak. Very bleak. But it works really well. Like it's just, like I say, you don't want to say too much, but it's called The Lodge, and it's talk about the feeling of isolation. You're going crazy. There's nobody to contact. You're stuck in this lodge with these two kids. What is going on? Check it out. It's called The Lodge 2019.
Hey, you know what? A good double feature with that would be a second feature for that would be this movie. It's a Norwegian film called Cold Prey, 2006. And it's kind of a slasher thing, but it involves a mystery behind a boy with a large birthmark over his eye and a bunch of kids on a snowboarding trip who, after their friend is injured, they hole up in an abandoned lodge. What they soon find out is that they're not alone. There's a little bit of a twist that if I told you, it might ruin it, but that one's great. And it's also fun because there's music by one of my favorite, I think they call themselves Death Punk, but the band Turbo Negro, and they do a song called All My Friends Are Dead. And
Nice.
It's terrific. But yeah, that one's a lot of fun too.
Cool.
Has anyone seen a Chris horror film from 2016 called Better Watch Out?
No, I've seen it, like ads for it or whatever, and I have not seen it though.
This was produced by American filmmakers who got a budget from an Australian production company, so it was actually shot in Australia. And it's about, it's Christmas Eve, and there's this 12-year-old kid who's got a crush on his babysitter. And his parents are going out to a Christmas party, and his dad is Patrick Warburton from Seinfeld. And the kid is madly in love with his babysitter, but she's older, and he's just a kid to her. But in the course of the evening, they are trapped in the house by a stalker. So it seems to be sort of the run-of-the-mill slasher thing, where it's like, oh, the calls are coming from inside the house. But about halfway through, it takes a turn, which makes it a way better movie. And I can't give that away, but it's definitely worth seeing. And it's a really clever script. The kid is really good. He's played by Levi Miller, who played Peter Pan in the movie Pan.
Oh.
And it's not really made by anybody who's made anything else since then, but it's just one of those, I was really glad I saw it. So
Cool.
Better Watch Out from 2016. Yeah.
Cool. Larry, how about you? What do you got?
Well, you know how much I love animation stuff. And I was trying to remember the name of this animated short made back in the 30s. And I did a little research and I came across it. And it's from 1933. It's from a small studio called the Ted Eschbach Studios. And it's called The Snowman from 1933. And you think, oh, is it kind of a cute little thing? Actually, guys, no. It starts out in the Arctic, and you see there's like a little Eskimo or Inuit, and he's got his little pet seal, and they're with their little igloos, and they're doing stuff, and you see other Arctic type animals, whether they be penguins or little bears or little foxes or a walrus. And what they're doing is they're out. Hey, it's a lovely day. We've got some snow, and they make a big snowman. And you think it's a nice, cute, roly-poly snowman. They make him very big. Well, then, for some strange reason, all these little animals, hey, they start throwing snowballs at the snowman. Like, it's almost like they're taunting it,
Uh-huh.
And as they do that, the snowman starts to melt a little bit and turns into this horrifying creature with giant, long fingers and fangs. That as it starts to melt, he kind of has this big mouth. And he starts to terrorize all these little animals. It's actually very scary.
Wow.
And so you can find it on YouTube. It's really cool. I don't want to tell you exactly what happens because it's really kind of neat. And the animals, all the little characters are kind of done in the style of like a Betty Boop type of thing.
Right.
But it's darker. It's from 1933. And Ted Eschbach actually directed it. And it's a really cool, creepy, appropriate horror-esque animated short that you guys should check out. Yeah.
Well,
Cool.
if you're talking about Killer Snowman, we have to talk about the classic 1997 film Jack Frost.
Oh, yeah.
Not to be confused with the other Jack Frost family movie with Michael Keaton. Right.
Right.
This Jack Frost is it's basically like a kind of like a Child's Play ripoff where there's like this serial killer or something who is being chased. He wrecks his car, runs into is in a truck, and he runs into this like genetics lab, of course, and his body is splashed with like some strange DNA that mixes with the snow. So of course he turns into like a sentient killer snowman.
Okay, so a roadside genetics lab.
Something like that. Somehow he runs into a genetics lab that explodes. Okay. Genetic material gets on him, mixes with the snow, and so he grows icicle teeth and bites people. He gets in the shower with one girl and like smothers her and shoots icicles at people. It's great though. It's actually, it's done obviously not very straight, but it's fun. I think there was a sequel to it I've not seen.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah. But it's pretty fun.
That's as believable as Sandman in Spider-Man, just sort of integrating with this.
Totally.
Science meets environment kind of, we'll just buy it because it's cool.
Exactly.
Wasn't Iceman in the X-Men, especially in the early days of the comic, didn't he kind of look like a snowman? Like later, I thought
he always
ice.
looked like ice. I don't know. I don't remember. That's the only way I remember him. That was probably the 70s, but I don't know if he looked like. Did he actually look like a little like Frosty the Snowman?
Well, not like that, but I mean, he looked.
Hey, I'm Iceman.
He looked like he was. Maybe I imagine this, but I remember him looking kind of like snow as opposed to the ice.
Possible.
But I could be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you imagined it.
Maybe I wanted it to happen.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. All this talk, we kind of brushed over the granddaddy and the classic, and I would like to spend a moment to talk about that, like the ultimate horror, cold, wintry film from '82, The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the movie, of course, but I guess from the standpoint of this episode, though, I would say that it works brilliantly as an isolated, nerve-wracking horror where it's very bleak and you're stuck in the middle of nowhere, and that the Morricone music sounds cold, and it's just everything about it. The same to a very great extent applies to the original Thing from Howard Hawks as well.
Sure.
It's all that the Arctic outpost idea.
Yes.
Is you can't get more isolated than that. I would throw even into that a fantastic TV movie from 1973 called A Cold Night's Death.
Yes, I love that.
Which is also an isolated outpost with Robert Culp and Eli Wallach as these two scientists who go to this outpost because the last guy is dead. They don't know what's going on. They've lost contact. They were experimenting with monkeys in this place. So there's all these monkeys in these cages.
Chimpanzees, right?
Chimpanzees and dead scientists, like what's going on? And you can't say any more than that when you see it. But that also is a movie where, Robert Culp and Eli Wallach are starting to go bonkers. They're driving each other crazy. Yeah. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? And
that's a great mood piece.
It's a great, it's a TV movie.
And then the Eli Wallach and Robert Culp, how they play off each other and how
fantastic,
how the tension rises. That's great. Getting back to The Thing and the cold element of that movie, that's what really freaks me out in the latter half of the film, aside from the alien stuff. I really feel the cold. Like when McCready comes in,
a refrigerated soundstage at Universal.
Yeah, during the summer.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of people got like colds and pneumonia because they'd step out into the heat and then go back into the refrigerated cold.
Yeah, right.
So what you're seeing is real.
Yeah. I know that they did location shooting, but then when they brought it into the sets, when you see all that snow on McCready's beard, and it's like, what could make this situation even worse?
Right.
And that's just freezing your fucking ass off.
Yeah.
And by the time you get to the end, which, if you've never seen the movie, we don't want to give it away. But cold plays a very important part in how the thing comes about and then what happens to the people at that facility. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
I think it's just, I was just going to say that what's really amazing about The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, is in being a failure at the time at the box office, which many people don't know or forget or just can't reckon with. It has become one of the most influential films of its kind, to the point where anything that takes place in the Arctic, if it has a team and a monster, there's no way you can evade the fact that you're going to make connective, you're going to compare it.
Absolutely.
So it really has long tendrils. And I would like to take this moment to champion a movie that you will all poo-poo, but I like it despite its flaws. And it's called The Thing, and it came out in 2011, and it's the prequel. And it's let me finish. I know none of you jumped on, but I'm just sort of throwing that out there because I know the people listening are jumping on me too. I stand by that film because I think it's a much better film than people give it credit for. It has an extremely bad reputation because they mangled the practical effects and the CGI effects and the hybrid, which just didn't work. And that really kind of left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, including myself. And Amalgamated Dynamics, Tom Woodruff and Al Gillis, they did an amazing job, but they got overruled by the CGI, and their work really was never seen. That being said, and maybe because I have a crush on Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I think it was just a really well done prequel that connects right to at the end of the movie, right to the beginning of John Carpenter's The Thing. And if you take it on its own merits as just an entertaining film that does play a little bit off of your expectations of The Thing, I think it's much better than a lot of people maybe realize or give it credit for. And all I can say is I stand by it as it's better than people think it is. And if you take it on its own merits, you might want to give it a revisit.
Hearing that from you, David, I could give another try. I think for me, I agree that the most egregious thing about it was the fact that they couldn't get the effects right. And I did also think there were way too many characters and not too many of them very memorable.
Agreed.
I also think it was just an unnecessary film, but there were elements of it that worked, that scenes that worked. A lot of the monster stuff when I'm watching, I just thought this would be great if they were practical effects. I thought if they were, I would like that scene a lot more.
Of course.
It just, I wouldn't say it's a complete disaster, but it's just ironic too.
It's just more solid. It's more solid than, and when I say that people might remember, we all have our opinions on this film, and they're very strong and mostly polarized to the negative. But I gave it a rewatch recently, not maybe 3 months ago, because I was curious. I wanted to give it another go, and I really enjoyed it for its own merits, like I said.
Well, if we could make the connection to Lovecraft, because that movie, all those movies are based on the original novella "Who Goes There" by John W. Campbell, and Campbell was a fan of H.P. Lovecraft to the point where he completely rips him off, because Lovecraft did At the Mountains of Madness, which is about finding this lost race of alien monsters who have a very, very significant connection to the human race that I won't give away. But it all goes down as part of this expedition, and they find this lost city where they explore going through all these strange buildings and it's this bizarre architecture. And then they come upon these creatures. And I mean, there's so many sort of stylistic elements that mirror The Thing. But I know that Guillermo del Toro wanted to make At the Mountains of Madness.
Yes.
And then was sidetracked and still does. Yes. And Prometheus, God help us all, threw us off that. But I can't wait for the day when we see that movie get made, because it's a wonderful story, and just the mood alone, what you could do with the effects now, where you wouldn't bash somebody's head in with CGI and subtly unveil the creepiness and the mood of exploring the city. And I would love to see that movie. And again, there's a lot of snow.
Howard loves Lovecraft, and he did find his way back in the Mouth of Madness about 12 years later.
Right.
Yes.
And so, that's cool. There's clearly those foundations there.
It's kind of neat. There's a tradition that goes on at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station at the South Pole, where like half the year you have maybe about 200 people there, but then there's the time between, what is it? It's like their winter overs doing mid-February through late October, when they only have a group of about 20. And every year they have a special night where they watch The Thing, both things back to back.
Cool.
And can you imagine being like one of 20 people in this place where there's nothing but blizzard outside? Can you imagine? I think that's really cool.
Which both things? They're Howard Hawks?
the 82 and 2011.
The
because-
prequel. Okay.
Yeah.
In the order of the prequel and then the
Well,
thing?
they didn't.
I would hope so.
Well, I don't know.
You have to do it that way, otherwise
Yeah, it's
it
true.
leaves a
Well,
bad taste in your
David,
mouth.
I will send a letter and that you said that this is the way it needs to be done.
Absolutely.
I
This
just
is
think
a requirement.
these are people who do real study, real scientists, not like fantasy science fiction side. They're real, and I think it's so cool that they actually watch that back to back.
I have to say, I mean, I can't even specify what exactly it is, but these days I keep on seeing these headlines on my social media feed or wherever I get my news, where scientists discovered an organism that's been frozen, a worm been frozen for 10,000 years.
Yeah.
And they have successfully brought it back to life. And everyone's like, have you seen the thing?
right.
I know.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of outposts that are in a snowy environment,
Mhm.
have you guys seen a movie? It's 2013 Canadian called The Colony.
Mm-mm.
And it's pretty fun. It's not a masterpiece, but it is definitely a good time and definitely good time disposable viewing. But check out this cast. Lawrence Fishburne, Bill Paxton.
Wow.
Wow.
It's 2045 and human beings have built these weather machines because climate change and global warming has become this even bigger problem. And so they build these machines to control the weather. But then the machines break down and everything gets snowed in all over the world. And there are these outposts, these underground bunkers where people are surviving. And these different outposts communicate with each other by radio and they trade with each other and everyone's doing the best they can. But then one of these colonies no longer responds. And so they send this search party to go and figure out what happened to them. And let's just say it involves cannibals.
Ah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Ice
And-
cannibals.
Yeah. And so
Ice cannibals.
very cold cannibals.
That was the original title. Ice cannibals.
Snow and cannibalism go hand in hand.
Yes.
True.
Yes,
And
sure.
foot and ankle.
All the way to Donner
but-
Pass. Yeah.
Well, right.
Well, if you go back to Donner Pass, but then you go to like the movie Alive, which is
Sure.
based on
Yes.
a
Yes.
true story,
Oh,
which they're
yeah.
remaking that story.
They're remaking that?
Yeah.
Still alive.
Yeah. Yeah. Alive too, not dead yet. But
Alive. Second course.
I didn't want to dive too deep into it, but I did want to include Ravenous in there.
Ravenous.
Yes.
Yay.
And
I
that's
love that movie.
a wonderful hybrid of snow and paranoia
Horror and paranoia.
and
yeah.
cannibalism.
So
Yeah.
good. What a
Good.
cast, too.
Right?
Guy Pearce, Robert
Guy Pearce,
Carlyle, Jeffrey Jones.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, if you're speaking of monsters, though, too, in a wintry setting, I love this movie. This is a found footage movie from 2010. That would be Troll Hunter.
Oh, that's so
One of my
Norwegian,
favorite
and
movies of all time.
I love the
Yeah.
premise of this, which is it's like filmmakers going out into this desolated area to try to catch like poachers who are killing bears. And they come across this guy he's a hunter, but he's not hunting bears. He's hunting actual trolls, different types of troll creatures that live in this area where nobody goes into. And there's smaller trolls, there's giant trolls. And it's found footage, but it's very well done. The effects are amazing.
That's what sells it for me is the effects are phenomenal for such a low budget film.
Yes,
Perfect.
they have to work because once it gets going, it's like, okay, we're being chased by a giant troll. You have to believe it,
Right.
and just the constant like overpowering weather that they're battling with during that, and the way like you can see, the trees are shaking. There's something on the other side of those trees coming through, like. Really well done and a great wintry horror film. Really good.
Fun fact: they used real trolls for the film, and that's why it's so realistic.
There you go. They probably
I knew it.
scale.
I knew it.
Yeah.
Well,
But yeah, that's a good one.
what I love about that movie too is the humor. The
Yeah,
humor,
I know. It all works
Yeah.
really well.
it's understated. It's not
Yes,
hit you in the
yes.
face, and it works really well with the conventions that they set up about the trolls.
Yeah, and also, unlike a lot of found footage movies, they do a pretty good job with the way they approach the found footage thing, because it is a film that they're trying to film it. It's because a lot of times there's a lot of rules that you bend when you're supposed to be on found footage, but it kind of works pretty well in this film.
I agree. There's a rule of thumb here, and if a film is shot in the Netherlands and it involves snow, it's very authentic.
Yeah,
they know their stuff.
Yeah, it really does get that across. Yeah, so that's a good one. What else you got?
Well, not necessarily a Christmas or holiday-esque film, but from 1953. I mean, I love this whole sequence from The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. I mean, the whole idea is, hey, we're going to test a nuclear bomb where there isn't anyone. Let's do it out in the Arctic. It's like destroy all these.
It's safe.
And it's safe. And so you have a dinosaur that has been awakened by this atomic blast. And there's this whole sequence where it takes place in the Arctic, and after the blast, and then the creature comes alive, and this is Ray Harryhausen's first, doing the special effects by himself. Solo effort, exactly. And it's just stunning. It's just some of the best stop motion animation for that doing that monster.
It's also a great introduction to the monster in that scene. You see it just like a little bit, you see it through the snow.
With the snow is flowing down.
Yeah.
And then what happens is, this monster kind of starts to, it goes through its pattern, how, it would move down along the coast. So it eventually, to the warmer climate, but he starts out in this wintry, Arctic, snowy, cold area.
Yep.
And I always love that sequence, and it kind of reminds me of Christmas a little bit. That sequence.
Yeah, totally.
And in fact, what's really neat is I've been waiting for the longest time for the coolest. I want a Beast from 20,000 Fathoms monster. I want the Rhedosaurus, and there have been models and stuff. Just recently, a toy has come out. Thank goodness.
Cool.
So here we are, 2021, and hey,
can I say two things about those titles? First of all, I must say, I think you all know I love Harryhausen just as much as all of you guys do.
Sure.
But I have forever, even in my adult life, have always confused the titles of 20 Million Miles to Earth and The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, simply because there's a 20 million and a 20,000. And there's a miles and there's a fathoms. And I always have to stop and think to just divide my brain into which one I'm talking about.
Well, David, you could also throw in the alternate title for Quatermass in the Pit, which is 5 million years to Earth.
Right.
That's exactly. Right. Yeah.
And I always want to say quarter, even though it's
Quatermass.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by the way, leagues is distance, not depth. So
that's right.
Let's talk about that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think they might have screwed up the title.
That's like the Kessel Run in Star Wars they got wrong.
Sure, right.
Yeah.
Everybody loves the animated film Frozen, and I guess the sequel too.
Oh, I love it.
I know that people who like that stuff
Let it go.
Let it go.
Yeah. It's not really my thing, but I can see why people love it.
Elsa sexy.
And it should not
sexy.
Yes. It should not be confused with a 2010 film by Adam Green called Frozen.
I know of this movie, but I've not seen it.
About 3 friends who are stranded on a ski lift, and the ski park closes, and they're still on the ski lift, and nobody realizes it. So they're stuck out there, and they got to figure out what to do.
And it's not just overnight; the place is closed for a week. So
that's right. Yeah, right.
That's like a detail, though. They're really screwed.
Yeah, isn't it like loosely based on a true story or something too? I think it is.
I don't know.
I read that.
I mean, one of the things is that they're trying to survive a pack of hungry wolves. And the wolf part, I get a little pissed off when you are constantly making wolves these horrible creatures. Because, especially in this environment, I think it would take a while for wolves to find you, especially at a loud, busy ski park.
Resorts, right.
Yeah. But
the wolves knew that they were going to be on vacation for a week. So
there you go. They had the calendar.
Right.
But I wasn't crazy about this movie. But I would say instead of watching Frozen, watch The Frozen Dead. Sean?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Of course. Frozen Nazis.
Wait, no, that's Dead Snow. Dead Snow.
No, well, this is Dead Snow.
Wait, are we talking about another Nazis in the snow
from the
movie?
60s? From the 60s with Dana Andrews.
That's correct, yes. And the whole idea is to freeze these Nazis, and then when they unfreeze them, they're a little different. They're kind of fucked up in the head.
Yeah, right. It's like
but
the
there's-
Third Reich
It
to bring him
was
back.
its time.
Yes, to bring back the Third Reich. And there's a great scene where they've got this woman who's like this experimental head, this disembodied head. And she's got one of my favorite things, which is the clear plastic dome over
Yes.
her
Yeah.
exposed
Yeah.
brain. I love that every time.
Oh.
Why don't they bring that back in movies?
I know, right?
They brought it
exactly.
back for Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 3 with Bill. With
That's right.
Oh,
It is.
I
You're right.
gotta see that now.
And I guess you could say the Hannibal sequel too with Ray Liotta.
Oh, that's
kinda had
right.
it.
They got to put
Yeah.
it. Well, you could put a dome.
That was
over
more
it.
of a
You gotta put a dome
culinary
to save it,
surprise
like
there.
to save it for later.
Yeah,
so
like a
you can
little
eat it
clear
later.
like color plastic, Yeah.
but the last scene in The Frozen Dead is worth the whole thing. I was just visiting my mom at her retirement home in Santa Rosa, and we were like channel surfing, and for some reason on
The Frozen
TMC
Dead.
there was The
Oh, I
Frozen
love
Dead, and it was the
TMC so
last.
much.
It was the last 10 minutes of it, and so my
That's
mom,
great.
who's not really into that kind of stuff, it's this last scene of this poor disembodied head. I really enjoy that movie.
It is a
It's
fun movie, yeah.
It's crazy,
Great.
and it goes into a lot of directions that you might not expect either. but
Yeah.
that was
Matt, she watched it with you,
well. It was the last like 10 or 7 minutes of it. So
but
yeah.
she
That's
watched
enough.
it with you, right?
She did,
That
yeah.
was enough for
And
her.
she
This
was
is
in.
the same woman. This is the same woman who took you to see all the Planet of the Apes films. I got to give her
That
credit,
is-
man.
no,
that's,
no.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
And she
Sure.
was intrigued. She wasn't. She didn't go, "Oh, turn it off." She was like, "Oh, that's interesting."
I would like to submit that one of my favorite uses of snow is because it is pure white. When there's blood, it's that much more effective.
Sure.
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so I'm going to throw two titles in, and maybe we could bounce back and forth. But they're both vampire movies.
Okay.
Ooh.
One is talking about Swedish meatballs and the Netherlands. Let the Right One In. Is the
Of course.
ultimate
Yeah.
snow
On my
vampire
list.
movie.
Yeah.
And that's the one that's the most understated but incredibly memorable. But
Yes.
On the flip side of the spectrum, and I don't hold these at the same level, but in terms of just pure enjoyment, 30 Days of Night.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
Where
I
you
did
have,
not care for it.
yeah, well, but
I mean, it's not
there's
a
plenty of,
masterpiece, but
it's a great concept. So
The
for
idea
anyone,
is
Concept is great.
idea is kind of
The-
better
the-
than execution in a way.
The comic book is great.
I am with you for everything that you've said.
Yeah.
But I kind of, thematically, since they're both vampire
Sure. No, it
films,
works.
I
Of
figured
course.
I'd put the two together because I just love the visuals of 30 Days of Night and the concept that
Yeah.
30 days in the middle of nowhere in Alaska, there's no sun, so that's where the vampires have their little vacation. And
Vampire
I love
Paradise.
it. I
Right.
love
But-
that. I
That
love
makes
that.
sense.
Let the Right One In is one of those movies. I'm sure most of you guys have seen, if not all, but that is one of those movies, and especially for a movie that came out in 2008, it's totally surprised me when I
Yes.
thought there were no surprises left in the vampire genre. And
Exactly.
you could have this
right.
amazing friendship between a boy and a little boy and a little girl who are neighbors. But this little girl is many, 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 many years old.
Yeah.
But the friendship that they cultivate is just so amazing, especially when there's some bully comeuppance later.
Oh,
It's just so
my
well
favorite
done.
scene.
Yeah.
My favorite scene. I also relate to the cold aspect of that movie because as they're hanging out outside and there's
Yeah.
snow everywhere and they're just talking outside in this cold environment, that was pretty much my childhood, which was,
Yeah.
I mean, San Francisco was like around 50 degrees most of the time, especially where I lived.
Right.
And
So you're used to that sort
yeah.
of temperature where it's no big deal.
yeah, you just say, hey,
Right,
let's
right.
go out. Let's go hang out all night in this area where everyone's freezing to death. We would have these kegger parties in the back of this forest and it's freezing cold, but everyone has their beer to keep them warm.
There's something in this particular film, Let the Right One In. It's not the only one. A really well-made film will capture this audio sensory experience. But anyone who's grown up or spent time in snow understands that all sound it disappears when you're in a
Yeah.
winter wonderland.
Yeah. Yeah.
The-
It's like
all the
muffled
sound is
somehow.
absorbed by the snow, and there's a very particular silence that if you can capture that feeling on film with the visual and the story and just create a real stark environment, Let the Right One In really captures that. And I think that's one
Yes.
of the other things
That's
that
a good
really
one.
sell it for me.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you touched at the beginning a little bit about The Shining. I'd feel terrible if we didn't even
Sure,
talk about
Shining's
that,
a great
because
example.
Yeah, sure.
That and that, talk about a wintry, chilling, and isolated film. Yes, the guys in The Thing, they're all isolated, but this is, look, it's like just three people,
Yeah.
locked in this giant place, and it's just cold and snowy, and you're kind of trapped inside that large
Well,
building.
especially when Shelley Duvall's getting chased and she's going through that little window, and just
Oh,
Yeah.
the way that the environment and the snow is like keeping her, hindering her so much from getting away from Jack, that is very effective.
But it's with that snowdrift, it's the ultimate snow slide to escape from a second story window.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah,
which
that's
is really
nice.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing about The Shining, too, is that there have been a number of people that we've had on our show who I respect, Dana Gould and Lorraine Newman, who have said that they don't really find The Shining scary. Now, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily scary. There's a couple of moments that are kind of creepy and scary, but I do find that film exciting.
I find it
And-
shocking and suspenseful. I
Yeah,
would say.
suspenseful. It's exciting. By the time you get to that maze at the end, that's a really exciting scene.
I agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree. And
You know who I would love to see adapt that novel? Ari Aster.
Mm.
Like, if there was anybody
You're
who
right.
could really make that scary,
Yeah,
it
That's
would
great.
get under your
True.
skin. That would be
Yeah,
amazing.
really just super disturbing. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're
James,
right.
that's
That would be-
brilliant.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Get
To
the
Maybe
throw
you
vision.
should-
out-
you
to
should write a
throw out
letter.
A couple other
Another
Stephen
letter.
King, Stephen King has utilized snow and blizzards. There was Storm of the Century. There's Misery, where James
Yes.
Carr.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
There's a sequel to Salem's Lot, a short story he did called One for the Road, where a car gets stranded in a blizzard in Salem's Lot, like 3 years after the vampires take over.
No.
Wow, that's cool.
All right.
And it's a great short story. But and film wise, David Cronenberg's Dead Zone.
I was just going to bring that up.
Oh,
Is that-
yeah.
Such a
Before,
great
can I just throw back into the Stephen King pile?
Yeah.
One that's not one of his more beloved stories, Dreamcatcher.
Yeah.
Dreamcatcher.
I never saw Dreamcatcher, the
Yeah.
movie.
It's a great novel. The movie is beat by
Mhm.
beat of the novel, and there's something missing. But that
Yeah.
being
Right.
said, and I do want to talk about Dead Zone, absolutely, because that really captures that atmosphere. But
Well,
Dreamcatcher really uses snow to its advantage for creating a really horrific experience.
James, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the movie for some reason didn't work, and it had good people attached to it, but
The final third all of a sudden becomes like, oh, there's too much to do. Let's just jam it all in at the end. Whereas the first
Really.
half to maybe 60% is really beat for beat, very much, adheres to the book.
Huh.
So, and that's good stuff.
Huh.
yeah.
But
Right,
I
yeah.
love the Dead Zone. When
Well,
that-
Dead Zone, and you're coming from a director, filmmaker who knows all about wintry, stark settings.
Right.
David Cronenberg, a lot of
Cronenberg,
his
yep.
Canadian productions early on, especially. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think the Dead Zone was a perfect match for Cronenberg in a way. I mean, just every scene. From the car crash that happens that causes Johnny to get the way he is, to the ice is gonna break.
Well, actually, I do want to say this, James. Could you tell listeners who are not familiar with the Dead Zone just what it's about?
Well, it's about Johnny Smith, a high school teacher who he gets into a car accident, goes into a horrific car accident, almost kills him, goes into a coma for several years, wakes up, and he's got the power of second sight. All he has to do is touch someone and he can look into their futures. And this is it's an amazing talent, but it's also a curse because he finds out that a very powerful up and coming politician is going to bring about the end of the world. And suddenly he's got this responsibility on his shoulders. Like, what does he do? Does he have the power to change the future? And Cronenberg distilled the novel with a terrific script by Jeffrey Boehm in 1983 into a terrific adaptation, not necessarily faithful to the letter, but captured the mood of the novel.
The
perfectly.
spirit of the novel, yes.
Yeah. And, Martin Sheen is fantastic as the politician.
So great. So great.
Yeah. And Christopher Walken in a career-defining performance, I guess, is
Yeah.
Johnny. And that's an action figure that I want.
Right?
Yeah, really?
I want that.
Yeah, really.
Johnny
With
Smith
the collar up and everything
yes,
like
with
that.
a pea coat and the cane. Yes, exactly.
That's another movie where that particular scene where he's investigating the death of the girl in the
gazebo.
The gazebo. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm like, it's not pagoda. The gazebo. There's a moment where he's walking over there and he's stepping on the snow, and you can hear the crunch and crack of the old snow as he goes over there. And there again, these elements that take place in the snow. If you're not taking advantage of the sound, you're missing out.
You know, it's funny that James brought up the really interesting thing about Martin Sheen. He plays this great politician, and he's amazing. And later on goes and does The West Wing as President Bartlett. And it's so funny when you see him, you go, oh, no, oh, no. But Martin Sheen, my understanding, you know, he plays presidents a lot. You know, that's
like Kennedy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to see that mashup. We got to see that.
I know, right? It's just like,
he loses it at the end.
Alternate realities where he's just walking around with a baby strapped to him all the time.
Oh man. Well, you know, guys, this has been fun.
Yes, it has.
This has been, and it's cold and chilly, but fun.
Yes, it is. It's a winter wonderland.
Well, we give you like a quick lightning round.
Let's do a lightning round.
Yeah, we got to do a lightning
Just
round.
throw out some titles.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let me throw out some titles. We have to mention, of course, the Ice King and the White Walkers in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Qualifies as a good wintry killer.
Winter's coming.
There's a couple obscure movies. There's one called Screams of a Winter Night, 1979 anthology film, where a bunch of college students get together and tell ghost stories in a cabin. And there's this talk of this kind of wood spirit called a Shabata that may exist, and it causes chaos at the end. There's a great movie called Ghost Keeper from 1981. On New Year's Eve, I think it is, snowmobilers get stranded and in a blizzard, and they find this closed hotel in the Rocky Mountains. And there's nobody in there except this old woman who's strange, and she may or may not have a couple sons around. And she starts talking about this legend of a Wendigo, and weird shit starts happening. It's good. I would have to say the Woman of the Snow segment of Qui-Gon.
Yes.
Oh,
1964.
yes.
This is also an anthology film. There are 4 stories, and the one story, The Woman of the Snow, these 2 kind of woodcutters get stuck in the snow. They find shelter at this hut, and basically a yokai spirit comes after them, kills one of them, decides to let the other guy live if he promises not to ever say about their encounter. And then years later, he falls in love with this woman. They have kids. And maybe this yokai comes back. Really good. Yeah. And this is more sci-fi, but I think it still is horror too, is The Crawling Eye, also with Forrest Tucker. 1958. Crawling Eye is great because it's also known as the Trollenberg Terror.
Yes.
This is like, there's this mountain that is snowy on top, and weird deaths are occurring. People are getting their heads chopped off. And what is in this cloud? It's not moving. It may be radiation in there. There's something in these cloud. And there's a scene where the guy's in a cabin kind of near the top, and he's all by himself, and he's communicating with the guys down below on the phone. It's like, I hear something out there. What's going on? Really creepy, really good sense of like isolated snow mountain location.
Yeah. And Sean, you know, a lot of people think that the creature or whatever is in that fog is kind of silly, but I don't think so.
I think it's Lovecraftian. I love it.
Yes, me too. I think they did a lot with very little money. I think it's really effective.
The less is more concept, I think, really works for it, especially in the beginning when people are beheaded and you're like, oh my God. Your imagination is much more powerful than what you ultimately get.
Right.
But as a kid, I love the monsters, you know. I also want to throw out a great slasher film, Canadian slasher film from 1983 called Curtains.
Oh, yeah.
I love Curtains.
Samantha Egger.
Linda Thorson, Leslie Donaldson, John Vernon.
John Vernon.
Basically, it's like this very kind of eccentric, demanding director wants to make a new movie. So a bunch of would-be actresses go to his remote cabin to audition. Yes. And there's a killer in a very creepy old hag mask. And there's this great scene where this killer is on ice skates because one of the girls goes ice skating, and this killer in this hag mask is master with a Sith. And it's great. It's one of the best 80s / Sith.
Scythe.
A scythe.
Scythe.
Scythe? What? I thought it was
Wait,
Scythe.
are you going to Skype a Sith?
We're gonna get letters.
With a
We're gonna get
scythe?
letters. We're gonna get letters.
Okay. So you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
A very sharp instrument, we'll say that.
Okay.
Very good, sir.
It's really good. And Ghost Story, I would throw in there too from
Oh, yeah,
1981.
Yeah.
It's a great wintry horror film.
I watched that again, and that is, I'm sorry, folks,
Really?
that's a
I'm not
dud.
saying it's perfect. I'm not
It's
saying
a
it's perfect,
dud.
but I think there's
it's
a lot of good stuff in there.
boring as hell.
Really?
The
I
Chowder
disagree.
Society.
Well,
Yeah.
not boring. Say what you want, but from 1966, I'm going to stand by this. How the Grinch Stole Christmas. The Grinch is a monster. Okay,
Sure.
Yes, he
He's
is.
a monster
Yes, he
for
is.
God's sakes. And also, we got remember in Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger from 1977.
Yes.
You have the
Ah,
tiger
yeah.
encased in ice.
And the
Yeah.
Comes
walrus.
to life, and the walrus too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how can we not forget the end of Son of Godzilla when the scientists cause it to snow on Monster
yeah.
Island? One of
It's,
the
it's
most
like Christmas time. It's
it
Godzilla.
is,
Yeah.
and
Father
you
and
see, and
son
it's
moment.
it's
It's
yes,
precious.
it's snowing, and Godzilla and his little son, Minya son, they kind of huddle together
Yeah.
as it snows, and thank God you have the scientist says, oh, they're going to hibernate, and they're oh, I feel better now, they're not going to be
Yes.
freezed to death, and so the last shot is of them on the island of the snow, and guys. Somebody made a beautiful snow globe of that scene.
Wow.
I
that's
wanted
great.
that so bad, and like an idiot, I didn't jump on it when I should have, and now they're really, really
I
expensive.
did.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have one.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's an allegory for nuclear fallout anyway. So don't.
Sure.
I was
Yeah.
really moved by that as a
Me
kid.
too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
It's a
Yeah.
great moment. It's an unexpected
Yeah.
moving moment in that movie.
but I don't have the snow globe. Thanks.
Well, you're not dead yet.
Oh, well. Well, I would be remiss if we didn't include The Invisible Man from 1933.
Yay.
where,
Absolutely.
I list too.
a blizzard factors majorly into the opening scene and the closing scene.
Yes, you're right.
And something I just recently found out was that Claude Rains did the voice of Harley's ghost, 1905 Scrooge, but he was not seen. He was only heard. So in a way, he brought back the Invisible Man in 1935.
Interesting.
Also,
the Invisible Man, just to say, like the Invisible Man in that movie, I am really thinking about the cold because as you know,
yes.
the Invisible Man is naked
Yeah.
the entire time. And so it's cold enough to just walk around naked at any point.
Yes.
Yes.
Like in the snow.
The actually, the working title was The Invisible Embarrassed Man.
I thought it was called Shrinkage.
Boom.
Also, talking about Let the Right One In a child's point of view, thinking about Curse of the Cat People, which takes place.
Also on my
Yeah.
list.
Nice.
Uh-huh.
Beautiful,
Beautiful film.
beautiful sequel. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Another action figure I would love to get is a Krampus, a really good Krampus.
Yep.
Yes.
The definitive 2015 Universal feature with Adam Scott and Toni Collette.
By
And,
Michael Dougherty. Yep.
Yeah, really like funny and fun. Somehow doesn't quite make up for the sum of its parts, but I
No,
still
it's like
enjoy it.
just like James, you're waiting for the definitive Krampus action figure. I'm still waiting for the definitive Krampus movie. I mean,
Yeah.
I still
Well, that
think
might
somebody
be
has
it.
to make it.
There is a movie called A Christmas Horror Story, and there's
Yes.
a Krampus segment
true.
in that.
And that's pretty good. That's very good, actually.
And
Yes.
with William Shatner, and it's
Right.
it's an anthology. But
Yes.
there are still things about the 2015 and I watched every Krampus movie on streaming, looking for one that I could recommend, and they are all shit.
Yeah.
Not a
Yeah.
single good Krampus
What's
movie.
with Krampus and
I'd like-
Yetis?
I'd like to step in and just say with the 2015 Krampus, I agree. It's definitely not the sum of its parts, but the creature design and the Krampus design
Fantastic.
are wonderful.
I love
And
it.
so
in that
they're-
movie?
I
The
think so.
Krampus,
Yeah.
I like the
Yeah.
Krampus in that film.
Oh
I
my
did
God,
too.
it's terrible with the
No.
with the mask face.
No,
Well,
I think
it's-
that
I think it
there's
works.
Yeah, and the way that they use the snow and
Not
the
the-
relentless snow, the blizzard, the power outage, the way
It's
all
sort of like this
huge-
sunken face, Saint Nick kind of look.
Yeah,
at the
I
very end.
thought it was a major disappointment because what you want to see a really scary Krampus, and I didn't think that Krampus was scary at all.
The scariest Krampus is the story that Arnold Schwarzenegger tells the kids all around him in that YouTube video, talking about the Krampus of his youth. And he takes extra special relish talking about how Krampus would snatch the little kids and put them in his, bring them to the underworld if they don't behave. That's the one you got to look for.
Yeah.
Okay, indulge me while I bust out a few more.
Sure.
There's a set piece of an icy lake death in Damien Omen 2.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
There's beautiful snow scenes in Return of Daimajin from 1966.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Great.
That's a good one. Yeah.
There's Red Christmas from 2016, where Dee Wallace comes upon the fetus that she thought she aborted years before that actually survived an abortion clinic bombing and comes back for revenge. Yes.
Let's see this.
That sounds like
At
The
least it's
Unborn.
not a topical film.
See, I thought when I started watching it, I thought it was going to be some sort of like Christian anti-abortion message, but it's not, because I guess D.T. Wallace is Christian, but it's not. It's actually a straight, horror thing.
Interesting.
And then finally, a zombie Christmas musical from 2017 called Anna and the Apocalypse, which is British. It's basically like Shaun of the Dead meets High School Musical, which starts off really promising, and I actually like the songs in it. But once they introduce the zombie element, it sort of loses its footing and becomes too uneven. But it's an interesting ride if you have the time to check it out. Anna and the Apocalypse from 2017. So there you go.
All right.
Nice one, James.
You guys hit pretty much everything that I've got, but there are two that we haven't mentioned that I wanted to sort of point out. One is Dead of Winter. It's a 1987 movie with Mary Steenburgen and Roddy McDowall.
Yes.
It's
That's
an
on my
Arthur
list.
Penn film. It's mostly inside, but listen, the title, the way they sell it, it's very cool. It's sort of like it's almost like Death Trap to a certain extent.
It's like an
feels
old-fashioned mystery suspense movie.
Yeah, and murder and double identities, and I think the less I say about it, the better. But if you like those,
it is good.
If you like those actors, I think it's worth checking out. It's a bit stodgy. It feels a little dated at this point, but I think it's a novelty that people don't really talk about. And boy, anything, especially with Roddy McDowall and the younger Mary Steenburgen, I think is worth checking out. And then the other title that I wanted to mention, there were actually two recent werewolf movies, but out of the two of them, Werewolves Within was one, but the other one that really resonated with me was The Wolf of Snow Hollow that came out last year in 2020. I don't know if you guys saw that.
No.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, Jim Cummings, he wrote it, he directed it, and he stars in it. And it's he plays this police officer who's really kind of losing his mind because there are murderers in this small little town, and he's responsible for catching the killer, but he can't. And the pressure is building, and it's clearly pointing to a werewolf. But no one believes in werewolves because this is reality, right? Or is it? And every murder that comes along to the point where people are saying they're seeing a werewolf, we are getting to the point where we need to really find out what's going on. And that's all I can say about it. But it takes place in a snowy situation. It's really well written. It's very tongue-in-cheek. And I think any more would ruin this film.
Nice.
All right. Cool. Okay. Well, I have a few. We got to talk about, even though this isn't necessarily a horror movie, it's a thriller, but there are some horrific moments. Fargo.
Yeah, sure.
Great.
Yeah.
I debated putting that on. Absolutely.
Great film, man.
Yeah. You gotta, just for that whole wood chipper thing.
Yeah.
So good. I would also recommend To the Lake, which is a Russian series about people trying to survive in a world after it's been hit with a virus of all things. And so it's this group of neighbors who aren't necessarily the best of friends, but they're trying to survive the breakdown of society, and not just society, but Moscow, Russian society.
No.
And so they're trying to make it to this cabin in the middle of winter where, there's supplies and some power and whatever, and they're going to go there and kind of wait everything out. But that's a great series. And this is a memorable scene in a film to me that it's just burned into my mind. But Frankenstein meets the Wolfman when they find the Frankenstein monster.
So good.
Got to melt them for the fight.
Yeah. And I just, when they find the Frankenstein monster in the ice, there's just something about that. Like, I would love for someone to make like a loose
diorama.
Right?
You can make your own. Just get your NECA figures and put them in ice, and you're good to go.
Because really, other than Invisible Man, of all the Universal monster films back at all those sequels, was that the only time you really had a kind of snow wintry setting? I mean, involving the Wolfman or Frankenstein or Dracula, right?
I'm trying to remember. I think
that's why it's so memorable, because it really does. It's also just like as a kid, he falls through that hole.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I've discovered a secret little cool cave to have fun in. And look, there's a monster in here too. Like, it's really cool.
Yeah, that's great.
If it has anything going for it, it has the most amazing poster.
Yes. Oh, the greatest
Fantastic
poster. Yeah.
Yes.
I would also want to recommend, once again, if I haven't before, I thought I had recommended this, but the series Black Summer, which is a zombie thing. That's
I think,
it's like a prequel to Z Nation, but you don't have to know Z Nation or anything to enjoy this series. It's what The Walking Dead should have been. It's pure excitement. Instead of a bunch of characters who are talking all about their feelings and everything, these are just people trying to survive. And because you have fast zombies, things are a lot more bleak, let's just say. But so there's a number of notable scenes that involve being held up in a place during winter. And so that's great. And then I would also like to bring up Alien versus Predator.
I was going to bring that too. Yes.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Wow.
Now,
The ultimate lost village.
Yeah. And so Charles Wayland, played by Lance Henriksen, brings a research team to the Antarctic to investigate a mysterious pyramid in the ice. But when they get there, they discover a deep melted hole that leads to the pyramid, which is where the predators keep the aliens that they want to fight. The humans accidentally release the aliens, and they're caught in between aliens and predators. But that's one of those movies where everyone is always talking about how terrible it is. And I do not think it's a terrible movie.
Well, especially if you look at the franchises of both Predator and Alien recently, I mean, it looks better and better every day.
Well, next to Alien versus Predator Requiem, it is the Citizen Kane of Alien versus Predator movies.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's more pulpy. It's more like, it's not like, it's not the first Alien, of course not, but it's not Aliens either, but it's a good comic book monsters fighting movie.
Yeah, there's not deep character development. I could have used a few better actors, sure,
but it's not bad though.
But I mean, you've got a team up between a human woman and a predator, and they're fighting aliens.
That's cool.
I mean, that's cool. Come on. And I just think that movie deserves more praise than it gets.
Agreed.
And just a very quick shout out to the Outer Limits episode, Cold Hands, Warm Heart, with William Shatner returning from Venus.
That's right.
And all of a sudden he can't get warm.
Oh,
yeah. That's right.
And we find out he's sort of morphing into a Venusian.
I want a little figure of that alien guy. I love it.
I know. That's great.
But I felt that way too at times. I just can't. I
can't get warm.
I can't get warm.
Every time that my feet get cold, and no matter what I put on, I think I'm becoming a Venusian.
The first Twilight Zone episode I ever saw in my whole life, will the real Martian please stand up?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, correct.
And that hooked me for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And that was, a bus breaks down and they're all trapped in the snow.
The bridge is collapsed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Anyway, but you're talking about Martians, Venusians, and, snow and the Twilight Zone. And that's where I go.
Well, Willoughby, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. A Stop at Willoughby is one of my favorite Twilight Zone episodes of all time. And that ends definitely in the snow in a way that I will not give away. But that's a really good one. So I would like to sign off with a movie from 2020 called Fat Man. It stars Mel Gibson, Walton Goggins, and Marianne Jean Baptiste. And so Mel Gibson is Santa Claus. And Marianne Jean Baptiste is Mrs. Claus. So it's an interracial couple, which is, for Mel Gibson. Anyway, but it's such a great premise and such a fun movie because what it's about is Santa is having some trouble with finances because there's just not enough good kids. And so he has to do a subcontracting kind of thing with the Pentagon to make things for the military. Right alongside that story, you've got this spoiled rich kid who gets a lump of coal from Santa Claus. And he's so pissed off about it that he hires a personal hitman who's Walton Goggins to kill Santa.
No.
And he sends him to the North Pole to have this shootout with Santa. And it is fabulous.
It sounds great.
It's so good. Mel Gibson is brilliant. Walton Goggins, always good. Marianne Jean-Baptiste is terrific. And once again, there's humor in it, but the humor is understated. The way that they portray the elves, because they're like these hardworking employees of Santa who, you know, they don't always like all the decisions that are being made recently, like, you know, working with the U.S. military. But hey, you know, that's what they got to do. That's what they got to do. But it's terrific. And I mean, talk about a perfect Christmas movie. If you don't necessarily love Christmas as much as I do.
Nice.
Wow.
So there you go.
Got to see that.
Well, guys, this was loads of fun. David, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Now,
Lots of
Absolutely.
good titles.
can you tell us, I know you've been working on a bunch of things. Can you tell us a little bit about these projects that you've got going here?
Yeah, sure. You know, none of them take place in snow, so I feel that, you know, I don't know if it's appropriate for this
That's okay.
podcast. But yeah, I'm wrapping up with a bow In Search of Tomorrow, which is
nice.
a 5-hour film about 80s sci-fi movies.
Oh, I can't.
Why is it so short?
Yes.
It should be
Yeah,
longer.
that's the thing is I'm known for 4.5-hour films, and I say, how can I one up myself? I know, I'll just add another half hour. Yeah, it's interesting. The difference between, and of course, before this, I was doing In Search of Darkness and In Search of Darkness Part 2, which you mentioned at the beginning of this episode. And I've lined up In Search of Darkness Part 3. That's coming up next.
Wow.
I'm going to be working on to be coming up in October. But the difference between the two, which is really kind of interesting, is that there's a bit of a different dynamic when we're talking about the structure of these films, because I do all these films where we cover an entire decade from 1980 to 1989.
Right.
Each year we cover a handful of films, and then in between each year there's a chapter that's sort of a larger context discussion on some of the topics of the era.
Right.
With horror, there's something about it where it could be a little more visceral and visual. You can have, you know, some fun intellectual conversation, but the way it's presented, you can kind of get through these pretty quickly and get to the point and then move on to the next conversation or movie. But with the sci-fi, there seems to be a little more explanation required.
Sure.
You can't just present this film and just say, this happens and this happens. And
Right.
Sure.
now let's talk
Yeah.
about it. You kind of have to lay a little more foundation. And
There's
so I found
concepts and
Yes, yeah.
Right.
there's just more going on that you can't assume people already know, because obviously, maybe not so obviously, the idea of these films is to not only be a walk through memory lane and the nostalgia of the decade for people who love these movies, but it's also to introduce people who haven't seen these. You know, case in point, which I think is a really great case in point, is just within the last week, someone pointed out on social media that they learned about and saw for the first time Little Shop of Horrors from In Search of Darkness, Part 2. And that's something where, listen, you know, there's a whole new generation that's discovering this stuff for the first time.
Sure.
And so if these movies can introduce, you know, a whole new generation to some of the greatness of that decade, then absolutely. But, you know, it requires a little more roadway to you know, to take off from these things.
Yeah, I think, you know, we're so entrenched in it and in the history of it ourselves, but you're right, but not everybody is, and that is part of the joy of it, is like turning other people onto this stuff that we know for a long time and loved, but you know, there's a whole history of stuff out there.
These movies are fun and to make, but they're very intricate in terms of how I present them, because I think about all the elements, because I'm a fan. I know these things.
Right.
I know the behind the scenes stories, and I know that you guys know the behind the scenes stories of so many of these.
Right.
So I have to weigh a certain alchemy of, you know, introduce the story, talk about some things that you may or may not know about the production or the story or have thought about the themes, but also reinforce what you know and show you some of the greatest hit moments, because that's what you want to either have them, have us talk about, or you want to see it again, or, you know, you say, how could you not include that? And, that's the big trap I have.
Yeah.
Multiply that, by 10 years of films.
Yeah.
So long story short, I finished production on that. I finished the rough cut. I'm in post-production. If you go to 80sci-fi.com, we're going to get this film out to the world starting in the middle of February. So if you go to that site or our socials, you can follow us, you can sign up for the newsletter. And as soon as it's made available, you guys will be the first to know.
So it's February 2022.
That's
right?
right.
2022 is the future.
Yeah, just a couple of months. I gotta go and finish this film, but we're polishing it right now. And I'm real proud of it. And I think you guys will love it. And
Can't wait.
We know it's going to be great.
I'm so excited.
We've
so
loved,
excited.
I'm telling you, I never thought that I could watch a 4-hour documentary and have it fly by. 2 of them.
Yes.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, you guys have always been incredibly supportive, and those who were able to make it, I just appreciate the support at the premiere. And if you couldn't make it, I appreciate the support after the premiere. And it's one of those things where I think you guys have really, 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 for me, having me, sit down with you and talk about these things and, other documentaries that are relevant and how it fits in with, all these other things that just talk about genres that we love. I think if anything, these are great Kickstarters for conversation.
Totally.
Definitely.
So In Search of Tomorrow, it's coming out in February. You go to 80s Sci-Fi Doc to find out more about that and details. And then I'm diving right into production on In Search of Darkness Part 3.
Wow.
And what's unique about that is there's just so much more to cover. And the fan demand for it really made this thing come into existence. And so we decided it was very important to integrate the backers and their opinions to choose a lot of the films that we're going to be covering. They get to dictate what this movie is going to be covering and what it's going to be about. And it's a pretty cool interactive experience. And we're doing what we can to be a lot more present and transparent so people could be part of the journey rather than back it and then wait a year for it to show up.
Right.
That's going to be coming out around, look for us in October of 2022 as well.
Fantastic.
And you're shooting for 6 hours on that one, right?
Yeah. Well, if you put all 3 films together once that's done, because that's going to be another 4.5 hours.
It's going to be like a Netflix series.
A 13-hour film. So you basically have like a 13-hour movie about 80s horror.
Yeah.
It's still not going to be enough.
I'll just have it on a loop, just running in the background at all times.
As you should. And no bathroom breaks.
Right.
Oh.
Well, speaking of bathroom breaks.
Boo. That's where I lost you, James.
Hey, David, I'd love to raise my glass and toast.
Yes.
If you guys would like to join me.
Yeah,
I'd like
absolutely.
to toast you, your amazing work. I look forward to this film and to Winter Sleigh-CATION.
Time for a listener shout out.
Shout out.
Having
a winter shout-out.
Shout out.
Chili shout out.
This is the last shout out of the year.
That's
No.
right.
Think about it, yeah.
Ooh.
And then
Shout out conclusion.
This is a great one. We got a very, very nice review.
What?
And this comes from Matt Simon, who says, my favorite podcast.
All right, Matt.
Oh.
What's not to love?
Larry.
Okay.
I tease.
All kinds of rad monster talk that will turn you on to a ton of great movies has gotten me through many work days with a smile. Fellas, check your Facebook messages for a poster for a haunted Turkish bathhouse that's too hot for Mark Zuckerberg.
What?
Oh.
Is this an invitation? Are we going to Turkey?
And Matt, please convince the gang to do an all Common Rider episode.
Yay!
Fellas,
cool.
the original series is out there free, so no excuses.
True.
I'll put that on my list next to the Doctor Who episode.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thanks much for your hard work, guys. Every episode has been extra precious throughout COVID-19.
Nice.
That's really nice to hear.
Well,
because
thank
Thank you, Matt.
yeah, it's been precious for us too. It really
Yeah,
has.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Kept our sanity.
Yes.
Yeah. And hey, let's remind our listeners that Monster Party swag is still available on our eBay store. It might be too late for a last minute holiday gift, but we do still have those classic Monster Party logo glow in the dark t-shirts.
That's right.
It makes for a great birthday gift in January.
Yeah. a great New Year's gift.
Yeah. And Valentine's Day is coming up, so it's never too early for that.
Hey, you know what? Next Christmas is coming up. So
That's right.
Yeah.
start early.
And if you're like walking in the dark and you're stranded in a snowbank, if you're wearing that shirt,
Where are they?
See the glow, they'll see the glow in the dark shirt and they'll find you. So
Had the Donner Party been wearing Monster Party t-shirts,
that's right.
they would
Yes.
probably have only had to eat a finger.
And I think we still have plenty in stock of the Monster Party cloth PPE face mask,
That's right.
Yes.
which
Yes, we do.
Unfortunately is still
Oh,
Necessity.
in
man.
many parts.
Like buy 3 of them and wear them all at the same time.
Yeah.
We're not out of the woods. I really hope they don't have to close restaurants again. When I went to Outback, I had to eat out in the back.
Oh wow.
Oh man.
I went to Olive
Merry
Garden.
Christmas.
I went to Olive Garden. I had to eat out in the garden.
Okay. Wow. This better be a trilogy.
Keeps getting better and better.
I went to McDonald's. I had to eat with Donald. I mean, it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. I went to Burger King. I ate with the king.
I went to Jack in the Box. Jack was quarantined in the box.
Oh, oh. Wow. You've been so lonely.
All work and no play makes James a dull boy.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
And hey,
don't
and
ever
hey.
stop with these, please.
And if you happen to be a Patreon member and you order swag on eBay, you will get free goodies.
That's
Courtesy of Jason Lindsay and Biff Bang Pow Toys and monster creator extraordinaire Ted Haynes.
There you go.
Two lovely people.
It's like Christmas every month.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is this Patreon thing, Matt? What can you tell us about that?
Well, I'm so happy you asked, James, because this has been weighing on me. I did some research. I found a remote mountain cave, and there a Yeti explained Patreon to me. And this is how it works. It's a platform where when you join, you get access to all this bonus material from Monster Party. So you get like bonus audio, you get bonus special shows like Larry's Toy Time and Monster Party Masterpieces. There's some short story collections that my stepfather-in-law has provided you guys. So there's a lot of stuff. And then we've had special interviews. We did an interview with Dr. Z, which was very exciting. Nova showed up. Oh, such a great time. And so, yeah, you get all this stuff. And really, I'm telling you, it's like you've walked into a snowbank full of pizzazz.
Wow. Well, it sounds pretty expensive, Matt. I mean, everyone's just done their holiday shopping. Everybody's broke. How can they afford something like this?
Well, you know how like when you're shopping and then you've bought presents for everybody and then there's like, something is missing. And what's missing is Patreon. And so what do? You go and you find that jar that has all the pennies and you pour it out and you count them. And you know what that comes up to? $5.
No way.
The exact amount that you need to join Patreon and open up this world for yourself.
Oh my
So
God.
$5. That's all it takes.
You can't get Wampa jerky for that price, man.
Oh, now I want Wampa jerky.
I do too.
Yeah.
Hashtag Wampa Jerky.
So there you go.
All right.
$5. All you got to do is you just go to Patreon, go to Monster Party, click the join button, follow the instructions, and you are in.
Well, that sounds amazing. And, meanwhile, let's remind our listeners about our social media platforms. We are on Facebook at Monster Party TV. YouTube is also Monster Party TV. We're on the Twitter at Monster Party HQ. And Instagram is also Monster Party HQ. So join us there, check us out. And hey, whatever platform you're listening to us on, just like Matt Simon did, please take a moment, write a review. You will make our day, and we will read it on the air.
That's right. You could be like in a remote Antarctic outpost, and you could still listen to our podcast. So.
Yeah, that's right. And we promise that we'll read it also on InstaFriend.
Friend face.
I miss the IT crowd.
Yes.
On that note, I am Matt Weinhold.
I'm Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James Gonis.
Keep America strong.
And remember, horror is a dish best served cold.
The ice is going to break.
I thought you were going to take your pants off.
Got it.
They're already off. They've been destroyed.
I see. Great.
I don't have pants. I don't wear pants anymore. And here comes Shawn. Here comes Shawn. Here comes Shawn. Right down Sheridan Lane. Hi, Shawn.
Wow.
Oh, we're in the.
Wow. He's
Wearing your-
got his Kirk robe. I
Yeah.
have that same
Yes, it
exact
is.
robe,
Me
but
too.
I didn't want to embarrass you by wearing the same thing on the same podcast.
I also have a Doctor Who one, but I'm doing the Kirk one today.
Okay, you got to mix it up. It's the holidays. Keep them
How you
guessing.
doing, David? Good to see you, man.
Yeah, likewise. Good to see all
Always.
you guys. I'm good. I'm alive. Are you guys alive?
Yes,
We are
Then we're
alive.
good.
That's the main
Then
thing.
we're good.
Yeah. So far, so good.
Yeah.
I am about to buoy in the plastic bubble. My life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
All right. Look at everybody there. Hey, James, look at you wearing
Hey.
your Bumble shirt.
Right?
Hey,
Bubbles
you know.
bounces.
Yeah,
Oh.
It's in keeping with the topic.
that's true. Yes.
Larry,
Maybe
Larry,
something.
this is my glass just for you.
Oh,
Nice.
Nice.
That's my
Return.
uncle. That's my uncle, by the way.
Well, if only I had my vintage 1960 glass, creature glass, I could
All
toast.
right.
Yeah. See,
Do you have one of those?
No, because
Oh.
I can't afford it. It's college for the kid or those glasses, and so
yeah. We thought we put a little money away for our old age, Larry. Enjoy that
Wait.
mountain of creature goods in the
There was-
gutter.
On your deathbed.
It was a
like
creature glass from
even one of
1960.
those it's like hundreds of bucks for
It is.
a decent one. And,
Really?
Yeah,
and
Wow.
But see, David got a glass because he thought, I don't know, I might look at the picture and then drink from it. So
Right.
that's what he's looking for in his glass.
Well,
he didn't know
no.
that he was going to be in this big contest with you about your shit and how much better it is.
Okay,
He would
so
like to have a glass of a beverage.
It's the
God
world
damn it.
versus Larry Strode.
Now listen, before you get into like attacking me, Mr. Holiday Happy Ho Ho, let me
Attacking
just tell
you?
you
You
something.
attacked
Let me
David.
no. I drink out of my 1960s creatures glass.
do?
Yeah,
too.
but you're
Wow,
scared.
so you get those 1960s germs. Like, it's great. It's like so fresh. It's like you're there in the 60s.
I
You get,
wash
like,
it by
polio
Sean. I
and,
wash it by hand.
I
wash it by
shower
hand.
in asbestos. It's all we get it somehow.
And
Yeah.
and then I use my King Kong straw from 1976.
Cool. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
but
the one
as you're
that-
doing it, you're so terrified. Oh my God, what if something happens?
No. This is very
I'm-
important. Very important that he brought up the King Kong straw because I owned that as a child, and I used it. And when you suck on that thing to get that to the top of the World Trade Center, you
Yes.
are passed out.
No,
If you
I
achieve your
Especially as a little kid. Yeah.
yes,
It's like-
yes.
I use mine for Coke.
barely gets up.
But David, now I can suck much more strongly. So,
Yes, it's all over the internet, Larry.
Years of training.
So when I suck that straw, you know, and I take it out on special occasions,
Oh,
and,
okay.
I'll use either.
Wait, so
What
you
would
take
those
it out
be?
on special occasions and you suck it. Got it.
I do. I do.
Yeah. All
And
right.
I suck really hard. I go.
That's what I've heard.
Hey, David,
then-
I like the hair, David. It
You're-
looks like you're going for like the
Yeah, this
Japanese
is the,
kind of, yeah.
Yeah, it's rare that I let my hair get long, you know, James GONIS style. But
Right.
I have been busy making yet another movie. So
I know.
I don't have much
Okay,
time
we
to
know.
do anything.
No.
Well, but that's like the reason, very specifically,
Sure.
between my kid in school and like meeting my rough cut deadline.
Deadlines. Yeah, totally.
The farthest I can go from my house is like Ralph's for food. That's about it.
Yeah.
I hear you, buddy. I hear you, and hopefully we'll be able to talk about that film.
Yes.
I'd love to. I appreciate your interest, and I'm happy to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about.
Awesome.
Just to give you a real a quick heads up about those things.
Please.
In Search of Tomorrow, the 80s sci-fi doc, we're premiering it February 19th.
Nice.
Now I would invite you, but this is
Okay, here we go.
I just don't like you, and that's why I don't want you.
That
to
explains it.
come.
I
This
appreciate
is,
your honesty.
No, it's
Obama birthday all over again.
Michael York is good. Unlike Beyond Fest, this is a backer only.
Oh, wow.
So the backers who paid for the, if one of you guys is a backer, that's a high level.
Didn't we
premiere.
put some money into this? Did we?
You put some into In Search from Darkness
But
too.
there's different tiers, so
Oh.
I don't
Is,
know what you guys did, and I do appreciate it.
Well,
Of course.
Do
Is
anything,
the
but-
show is In Search of Tomorrow officially done now, or is it done?
So we're in post. So the rough cut's delivered. No more interviews are being done. I am
Right.
polishing it, and I'm happy to talk about the stage that's in, and the world
Cool.
will get to see it because we'll have another sale mid-February when we premiere it.
Nice.
And then the other one, In Search of Darkness 3. Just
Yeah,
because
I saw that on your IMDb already. I'm like, holy crap, he's doing the third one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
That's
more.
awesome. I know. Hey, he could probably do 10 parts of that. To be
I
honest.
can't complain, but I never expected to do a third. So
Yeah. Hey,
We can't wait.
it's- Yeah.
I got 4 hours to spare. Bring it on.
Yes.
And David, I just want to go out on a limb here because I know Matt gets, he gets a little pushed out of shape and things like this happen. But I just wanted to point out that because you didn't invite Monster Party to this premiere, it's okay. I'm not offended because I understand, like, when you have that friend that's going to get married and they go, hey, I can't invite you because I have only so much money. And it's like, I'm a friend of yours. And I would say, hey, David, I understand. I totally do, because weddings are expensive. Premieres are expensive. So I totally get it. I want you to know that I will still support you and your film project, even though we're not invited. And I'm
Well,
not
thank
taking
you.
it personally.
Thank you. I mean, you're invited to stand out in front with signs saying like "Rah
Oh,
rah,
yeah.
David." If you
Oh,
We'll
want.
have
do
the
that.
Monster Party tent.
There you go.
Yeah.
And hand out buttons.
Look, man, I don't want to
it's-
look pathetic out there, going
Too
on
late.
Monster Party. I'll draw a line somewhere.
In Search of Darkness Part 3 will be coming out in October of 2022. So I'm about to. We're just beginning production now, starting interviews. While I'm finishing up polishing In Search of Tomorrow, we're ramping up, starting interviews, lining up talent, getting everything going, and incorporating the backers to help choose the content by voting on
Right.
the movies they
Okay.
want to see. So it's pretty cool. So
Hey, David. So you know how we normally use this this sound audio file for extras?
yes.
So how much of this can we use? Or is this, you're just going to say this when we do the show proper, right?
Yeah, I'll say it on the show proper, and I'll be more concise. But
Okay.
I wanted to sort of give you a heads up.
No, that's
Sure.
great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Also,
David.
I'm not limited. I mean, I don't want to. I must have dinner at some point, but I'm not limited to just the hour. I can.
Can we, if we do an hour and a half, is that good?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's
Do
do
an
it.
hour and a half. And if someone could let me know when we get to the hour and a half, if I'm
90
not,
minutes.
thank you, sir.
Yeah, we get to like 9:15.
Yeah.
Or no, 8:15. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh my God,
Wow,
Sean.
Sean. Whoa, boy.
We get to like midnight, 1 a.m. Just like give us a holler.
Did you guys get the mini Godzilla?
I've seen that.
I did.
Larry has like 7 of them. Yeah, but
I don't have 7 because I try to be considerate of my other Godzilla fans out there. Like an idiot, I decided when they came out with the little box, I said, I'm only going to get one. And there's bastards, and these are the people I hate, who they buy a bunch of them and they put them up on eBay right away
Sure.
for like 3 times the cost. And I hate those people. But you know what? Guess what, Sean? Guess what?
You only
Super
got
7
one?
did something really cool.
Oh, they
So
did all
they-
variation.
No, they came out with the one with the box, okay? And so people thought, oh my God, this is the only way I could get it. And well, a few months later, they came out with the exact same figure, but now on a blister card.
Right.
So
Oh, okay.
those people who missed out on getting the box, they can get one on the blister card. So all those bastards who bought one think, I'm going to make a ton of money on eBay. It's like, screw you, asshole. Now you get stuck with your fucking Godzilla in the box.
Go, man.
And it's like, so I wanted to get one for Matt, and Matt missed out on the box, but I got him one on the blister pack. So
Yes,
now
he did.
he's got one. So we can
it's
take
lovely.
that out. It's
But I'm
neat,
not,
David.
Larry. How do you like that? I'm not going to take it out of the blister pack.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I there are certain things that you have to keep. I like the presentation.
Yeah,
It-
for those
reaction.
little size figures, it works. Yeah.
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 David, did you get the one on the blister pack or in the
You got the
Shogun
box,
box?
right?
I was one of the ones who, it's a rare occasion for me to get in line for anything because I just don't want to compete, But I still have my big version of this.
Oh, cool.
As-
Yeah.
And
as
so,
do I.
this means a lot to me. And so when I saw that they were making this, I flipped and I set reminders and I just jumped on it the day that they did. And
That's
I bought
cool. Yeah.
16
Oh!
immediately put on eBay. I made so much money.
You're making
what were you
bank
saying
now.
earlier? But anyway, I made
Yeah,
a
that's
mint
cool.
off of them. So
Shrewd business deal there.
See, that's
See, I'm not a fan of that. That's David. That's darn right mean. But you could say it's capitalism at its best. But it's like, think about that poor collector out there that goes, "Oh, I only have $25, and I can't."
I think it's more like sarcasm at its best, Larry, which you, of course, again has fallen for. But let's
he
just
didn't really
move
buy
on.
17. But if you did
Yeah.
buy 17, sir, a Godzilla, please.
if you were led
For
to believe
Christmas.
that I bought 17, I was jesting. But one last thing about this extremely important topic is, I don't know if you saw, but they did another variant that was this version, except it was like the Aurora glow in the dark model.
Fantastic. I
Oh,
love
cool.
Yes.
it. I love it.
That's
Isn't it
cool.
amazing? Like all these toy companies are putting out stuff totally geared toward
They
50-year-old
Brian
nerds.
Flynn. Yeah, you should get Brian Flynn on your show. Brian
Sure.
Flynn is the guy
Yeah.
who is Super 7, and he's a super
Yeah.
nice guy.
Cool. Okay.
And you should invite him.
That's not out of the
because
question.
He gets
Sure.
He gets it.
We have all
cool.
of next year. Countdown to Armageddon.
His name's Brian Flynn. They have their
Okay.
own, they're a small company, but they do
Yeah.
PR and all stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sounds good.
David, thanks to you, Ike Eisenman just liked our tweet announcing
No
this
way.
episode. Yeah,
Really?
Wow.
yeah,
Ike,
because he tweeted something, and then because you interviewed him, right?
yeah.
And he sort of seems like one of us. I mean, he's into this
He's
stuff
a
too.
geek. He started his own podcast recently. He just got on Twitter, and he's super cool. And I got to say to his face, "You can do it, Duffy Moon." Remember that? Come on. Half of you were laughing, half of you were like, is this a joke that I should get?
Yeah.
There was an after school special called, I don't know, The Astral Adventures of Duffy Moon, and it was really silly. But back in his Witch Mountain days. But anyway, listen, I guess this is all going to be on the extras now because we haven't even started the podcast.
Yeah.
I love those Witch Mountain.
I just like socially catching up with people who know what the hell I'm talking about.
Sure. We should do a whole Witch Mountain episode.
Well,
we should
you
do an
should.
after school special
I
episode.
would be happy to connect you with Ike.
He'd be great.
Because
He's
he's
also he was in Devil Dog Hound from Hell and
Yeah,
all kinds
right.
of stuff. Yeah.
Isn't he's Fantastic Journey too, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of 70s stuff.
He
like that.
loves.
Yeah.
He's a fan of this stuff. He's a Disney file. He lives in Celebration, Florida, which is a Disney created town.
Really?
adjacent to Disney World.
Does it have its own laws or?
Yes, well, Mickey Mouse
Does it have its own-
Goofy does the traffic stops, and
Who does the church there? That's what I want to know.
but anyway, he's a super nice guy.
That's
and
cool. I love
Sounds
that.
great.
It's again, sometimes it's the least known that make the biggest impact.
Yeah,
because
totally.
we all know him from,
Of course.
From everything.
You know, it's like
Him and
between
Kim Richards.
Oh, Kim
Right.
Richards. Stop.
and like
Kim Richards.
Lance Kerwin. You know,
Kim
these were like
yeah.
Lance
Tough
Kerwin.
turf. Tough turf.
Yeah.
Come on.
Is that outer space lights on your ceiling there?
oh yeah, you know what? Because it's from
Is it the Matrix?
that's from what's out my window. Because the front of my house, it's all kind of going through.
Christmas
That's
decorations.
cool.
Cool. That's cool. That's
Oh,
very
appropriate.
That is appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought there was some sort of law enforcement situation happening.
Usually, but this time not.
You don't have to tell me. I live in Van Nuys.
By the way, my best to all your kin and spouses.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
You
very
too.
much.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Likewise.
Same
tell them
to
I
you.
say hi.
Yeah,
Likewise.
definitely. All right. Well, should we start
You know,
this?
you know what the topic is, right?
Dune, right? We're doing a Dune.
Ike Eisenman. Unfortunately, can't be here, but let's just do it anyway. Go.
Monster Party Winter Slay-cation. Go ahead.
Anyway, guys, it's always a pleasure, and I miss you. You know,
Yeah,
seeing you
I
guys.
can't wait to
Yeah, we
actually
gotta
physically
hang.
hang with you.
Yeah.
And,
Seriously,
Yeah.
buddy.
I
Seriously.
know.
At the very least, it's still fun being able to, carve out some time. And
Absolutely.
I always appreciate being asked. And
Always.
it's also,
Your family.
well, there was that one
Yes.
time I didn't appreciate being asked, but I was polite about it.
Oh.
No,
Did I
no,
had
no,
something
no.
to do with that, didn't I?
No,
It was
No, I
me.
know it was
caused
Larry.
a problem. I caused a problem. Look,
No.
nothing's changed, David.
No,
Nothing's
listen,
changed.
think about it. Listen, I miss the times when we not only just do the podcast, but we cross paths at like Comic-Con.
I know.
And do the just
Maybe Monsterpalooza next year if it's happening.
Maybe.
You know?
If,
and
Fingers crossed.
just to see what James is going to wear. I haven't seen that for several years.
Right.
Because I get these things. They pop up. I have one of those Google Home, things that if it's the anniversary of the year, it pops up.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
photos.
Yeah,
So,
like
you know,
Facebook does that too.
Yeah, so pictures will pop up when I'm next to James, and he's either Jor-El or he's Shatner with the Michael Myers mask.
I think it should be
Yeah.
Johnny from Dead Zone.
Yes.
Ooh,
That's
that's a good
next.
one.
Or,
Wow.
Or as a Wampa. Just go as a Wampa.
Yeah, sure.
Never
Just
seen
don't-
that.
don't
Nobody does
shave.
that.
Don't shave or
Anyway.
dye your hair.
I'm almost
I
at now.
miss you guys, and it's always a pleasure to hang with you. And
Likewise.
thanks for having me on.
Likewise.
You got it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And
Likewise.
when I'm going to be stumping for this in February, so if you'll have me on, we could talk
Yeah, we can do some
sci-fi,
more
80s
promotions and-
sci-fi,
yeah.
and all that
We'll
kind of stuff.
we'll figure
If
out
you're-
something.
Yeah.
If you're interested, if that's not too soon,
It's a little soon. Not to be a little soon. But we can always
We'll
get
do
a plug in.
something.
We'll,
Yeah.
we'll make it work.
We'll plug.
Okay,
we'll
it is
plug
too
away,
soon.
For sure.
Then I guess I'll have to have Ike Eisenman on to talk about it.
Yes.
There you go.
Hey,
Yes.
if you come on with someone else, then that's fine.
Okay.
If you can get Kim Richards, you're on forever.
Hey, I got to hang out with Kim Richards because I did a reality show where she
I'm
was
sure
on
she's
she was on
bonkers, right?
the Housewives show.
Yeah.
She is bonkers, but she was very nice.
Perfect.
Yes,
I love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
My perfect combination.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Probably a monster in the sack.
On that note,
On that note,
On that note,
and remember, horror is a dish best served cold.
There you go. Nice.
Larry,
Yeah, it's fine. I don't mind it.
you don't mind it. Should we keep working?
No.
And then somebody should just shout at the end after it's all done. Just somebody should shout, "The ice is gonna break."
That should be James.
Well, yeah, do your walking.
Yeah.
The ice is gonna break.
That's pretty good.
That's like Al Pacino. That's Al Pacino.
Let's hear yours.
Try with your
Let's hear it.
Godfather voice. Try that one.
Godfather.
He loves.
The ice.
Okay, now,
You having a
now
seizure?
I don't know what's happening.
Yes, I am.
Should I do my James Mason impersonation
God,
for
no.
you?
No.
Let me hear yours again, Sean.
The ice is gonna break.
That's
All right.
good.
I mean,
I think that's pretty good.
I mean, I'll
Yeah.
try.
Well, let's. I'm sorry, James. Thanks, Sean.
You know what? You were in the finals.
Yeah.
You know, that's all I can ask.
All right, let's do it. So, horror is a dish best served cold, and then you go. The ice is going to break.
And then can somebody do then like cracking ice sounds?
You know what I think it'll sound like? It'll sound like this.
Yeah.
You're right. All right, don't do that. That's fine.